It's gravy.
All right, we're going live, so don't say anything weird.
Oh yeah.
Okay, I think we're live. Hi, Jake. I know you're there. Jenna might be there.
Jenna. Jay, that was so funny that you
JT,
just figured
yeah.
out what Jenna's name meant.
I know. I need to post that in the meme section, I think.
Like, brother, you about a week late and $1 short on that one.
Well, and I asked him. I don't think I sent you that part, but powder or no? Yeah, he's right. I asked him. I just was like, oh, I guess you weren't in the stream when I figured that out. I think what it was my first God of War stream, because it was a while ago. And I was Jenna popped in, and I was like, I get it now. Feels like forever ago, and it was only like a month and a half.
Yeah, right? That's crazy, actually.
Okay.
Happy New Year, by the way, everyone.
Oh, yeah.
In the troll room.
So I've gone through this like crazy process trying to figure out how to handle the the ISOM #1 comics.
Yep.
And I was watching a video a couple days ago. It was either yesterday or day before that Red Letter Media did. They've always had this running joke of people sending them this movie Nuki. It's just this terrible like ET ripoff. And I've never watched it. All of my experience with that movie is based on other people talking about it for the most part, like other YouTubers, things like that. So this video that they did, that they're going through this whole process of like the history of VHSs and what's called grading, which is essentially something that typically gets done with trading cards and comic books and magazines. There's anything that's sort of in that realm of it can deteriorate if it's not taken care of well or if it's not sealed. And so they, as a joke, I'm jumping ahead a little bit. As a joke, they took this copy of Nuki that they had sealed because apparently recently a copy of Back to the Future that was like sealed and graded, right? So it's like never been opened, and I can't remember what let's see if they had. So this says an 80 plus or whatever, which means it's a pretty good copy.
Right.
Whoops. Okay, so I cannot do that. I need to get rid of these. Put this over here. They had a copy. I'm gonna pull this up so that everybody can see this. Or they had a copy of Back to the Future that went for $75,000, a VHS tape.
Whew.
And so Red Letter Media was like, this seems weird. VHSs are readily available, and typically something like that is based on rarity. So you think about like a Superman #1 that's in mint condition goes for, I think it's like $3 million, something like that. So why is it that this was going for so much money? So what ended up happening, Jake's still mad at Nightbot. What ended up happening is that Red Letter Media took this copy of Nuki, got it graded, and they destroyed all their other copies of Nuki in a wood chipper because, as a joke, but also they're like, well, now our copy of Nuki will be more valuable because there's this, like, there aren't as many copies of Nuki left anymore. And they even had someone who apparently had just sent them in a copy of Nuki, and they were like, thanks so-and-so from wherever, because they sent him a note, and then they just threw it in the wood chipper. It was good. Like, peak Red Letter Media comedy.
That's great.
And so they put this copy of Nuki up on eBay. Do you want to know what it's going for?
I do.
Okay. So this Back to the Future one,
25,000
higher. Back to the Future was $75K.
Okay, so 50
higher. This is
80.
The current bid is, you're really close. It's 80,200.
Oh my.
I'm gonna pull this up. Where's
Dude, that is
Where's OBS?
crazy. See, like,
there it is.
I still have my ISOM copy. I haven't read ISOM yet because I'm not opening it. I have it signed by Eric and all that good stuff.
Yeah.
And
I don't know. So I'm gonna get at least 2 of mine graded. It's really expensive. It's like $200 for that. Because like I was looking at it, and it's based on like the current rarity.
Okay.
And so because it's
what is graded, like they rate
see.
basically what your
the quality of
the
book.
quality of your product or whatnot.
Now the thing is that they open it. So what I realized is that opening it out of the plastic isn't what in and of itself gives you the grading. It's based on the quality. So like if the pages are bent, what's the seal look like? Because they take it out and apparently they they do their whole they put gloves on. So the website's called CGC. I can send this to you.
Okay.
These are like the guys. Where is it? But it was a little complicated. I had to look up like what does it mean to have that stuff done?
Yeah. That's pretty interesting. So basically,
CGC.
provides legitimacy to what you have.
Yeah, and it's all about like condition of the comic, not necessarily. So what's weird about the VHS thing, right, is that you could have a sealed VHS that's never been opened and never been played, but if it was, and Red Letter Media brought this up, but if it was sitting next to like magnets for its entire life, that's just a blank copy. There's not actually anything on that. So the why it works for like baseball cards, comics, magazines, that kind of thing is because you can actually tell because they open it up, they look at the pages, they look for creases, they look for discoloration, like all that kind of stuff. Whereas with a VHS, like this copy of Nuki that they've put up here, it's so crazy to me, man.
That's crazy, dude.
Yeah, that is they don't open the seal on that because for the idea behind it is because it's sealed up, it's technically more valuable because it's never been opened.
And where did it start at, the bid?
Honestly, I don't know because by the time I saw that video, it was already at like $72K.
Dang, man, that's crazy, dude.
Yeah.
Dude.
And apparently
I need to go look at all my VHSs now.
Yeah, maybe. I don't think that I think it's
uncensored.
I think it's a scam.
Little Mermaid, didn't they do that with Disney? Like the
I think
the old copies.
I think most of that is a urban legend.
Okay.
I think all of that's been disproven at this point.
The subliminal messaging, that's what I was trying to think of.
Alrighty. Let me get us recording.
When we were cleaning today, my wife had the Grand Budapest Hotel playing in the background, and I forgot how much I enjoyed that movie.
I actually haven't seen it yet. It's one of
You haven't seen it, dude?
Yeah. It's one of those Wes Anderson movies that I haven't seen yet, and it's from what I hear, it's one of his better ones too.
Yeah, it was. I remember it at least. I mean, this has been years since I've seen it now. I remember it being good, and so I couldn't tell you why or anything like that. I just remember after watching it, I thought, oh, that's a good movie. I enjoyed that. I could watch that again. But now if I didn't actually, it was just playing in the background. But if I sat down and watched it right now, I don't know what I would think. But I do know that one of my favorite actors is Ralph Fiennes.
Yeah. Do. Okay.
Yeah. Clean shaven. The first time in over a year. Jenna.
I haven't been clean shaven since 2015.
Dude, it's crazy. It's crazy. It's just where I live. It's really dry, and I had just had it, and I was trimming the mustache, and I was like, you know what? Let me just go shorter. And I was like, well, now I look too Amish.
Joseph, it's just because you're a soy boy.
That's it. I'm not based enough.
Yeah, you're not based enough.
I lasted a year and 3 months, and the soy was just coming out of me.
Too much soy. It's
And
so
it just overpowered
yeah.
me. And then my wife came and doused me in estrogen, and I was like, oh.
The all of Mahler streams, people are just like constantly quoting that stuff now. I think it's gonna be memeable for a long time.
I'm gonna get a freaking backdrop that says super based. And like I should have like a running ticker. We should do this, get like a running ticker of all the video games we played. Just be in the background, just more based than you.
Bro, I've gone down this Soma rabbit hole since I beat that game yesterday. I'm going to add it to my list, I think, of at least story-wise, like best stories in video games. Also, I just accidentally covered up your face with David Harbour. I apologize.
Hey, you know, I don't hate that. You don't have to, you know.
I need to see if this is gonna.
He's a good-looking man.
With. Is it,
I mean,
because it's in that?
He's not as good-looking as I am, but he's almost there, you know.
Yeah, I'm pretty anti-Starbucks. I don't really go often, and when I do, the only thing I get there, well, their regular coffee sucks, because they leave it sitting all day. But I'll get a flat white there because it's a lot of caffeine. But even that, like, I just don't go anymore. Their stuff's too expensive. It's way better and more financially feasible for me to just make coffee at home.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I had
too many soy boys.
when I was in Billings, Montana. I had a couple weeks back Starbucks for the first time, and dude, it's been years since I've had Starbucks because we actually have one in the city I'm in, surprisingly enough, but it's in a grocery store, and so I'm not going to a grocery store to get coffee, especially Starbucks coffee. I'm just not the biggest fan of them. It was just at the time it was convenient to the hospital, so
yeah, I feel you. Just like became based and boycotted them 8 years ago.
Well,
They're
Jenna,
just
you're
like,
just not based enough. You kind of sound kind of soy because I was boycotting them 9 years ago. So I was the first one to boycott them, actually.
They just kind of suck, dude. I'm not into it.
Yeah. There's some things like when I had their Irish, whatever Irish coffee they had, the first time I had it was good. And the second time I was like, this isn't as good as I thought it was. And so that's kind of how it typically goes. Like I'll have a good first experience after a while with a Starbucks drink. And then I'm like, okay, let me get this again. I'm like, no consistency for me, at least. I'm under 40, Joseph. You've had more time.
Jenna, how old do you think Joseph is?
Yeah. How old do you think I am? I'll give you a hint. I'm above 18.
Let's see. I think I'm good.
I'll give you another
31.
hint.
Oh, that's pretty good. That's a pretty good guess.
Right on the money.
Yeah. Dang.
Right on the money.
You know what's funny is like we probably know Jenna.
Probably.
Yeah.
It's probably, one of our friends being anonymous or something like that.
Yeah.
Someone from back home or something like that.
If not, that was a really good guess.
Yeah.
That's impressive.
Jenna, do you know what we're talking about when we say synthetic man? I think you had said that you had watched the EFAP last week, or maybe I'm just imagining that.
Yeah, they had. We were talking about it before you watched it.
Okay, cool.
You're late to the party, Joseph.
Yeah. Hey, bro. You got me watching 9 hours of God of War stream, 12 hours of EFAP. 15 minutes of ISOM, then you send me something else for 20 hours, and it's like,
hey, man.
I'm like listening to everything at 4 times the speed so I can catch up.
Oh, Synthetic Man. Yeah, I mean, I think that was the first time he's ever really been on my radar. There's like, man, him and Organized Chaos, which is the one I sent you. That's that other one, Joseph.
Mm-hmm.
Man, that dude's also like obsessed with like Eric, July, and those guys.
Organized Chaos.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've been also wanting to catch up on my No Agenda too.
Yeah, I've been a little behind on that because I've been listening to The Wheel of Time on audiobook.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm on an audio. What? Why are you apologizing?
I'm just kidding. Because there's like, aren't there like 15 books?
13 and a prequel.
So close enough.
But
basically 15.
I drive so much. I drive so much now that it's the best option to be able to get through extra stuff. And the books are fantastic. Like a lot of the stuff that the first one's been great. I shouldn't say books because I've only finished the first one. But a lot of the stuff that we talk about all the time with character development and taking your time, I think it's a common criticism of that series that the pacing is a little slow for the first few books.
Right.
Which I kind of agree with, but to be honest, because I'm so obsessed with the characters and character writing, I think those books do a really good job with all of that. Because I remember the first time I tried to listen to the first book's called The Eye of the World. I was like, man, this is slow. Like I wasn't really into it. But going back over the last like month or so, going through that, it's really cool. There's a lot of really cool characters. I mean, the way that he writes men and women in his book is very interesting. And you know, there's been this argument forever about like that I don't know. It's sort of, I wouldn't say fabricated, right? But it's part of this whole thing about, oh, you know, we need more strong female leads or blah blah blah. I mean, like that was the whole thing, right? I mean, Jennifer Lawrence admittedly created the strong female lead, but it's something that we've been talking about for a while. And there's like an entire, so the way that like magic works in The Wheel of Time is that, well, and no spoilers if anybody's read them all, but the women essentially are the magic users in that, and the men,
it's because the men are soy.
Yeah, exactly. The men also have the ability to use magic, but the running like history with that is that men who learn how to use magic eventually go insane and either become like violent evildoers, I guess, or I think they end up just dying for like lack of ability to control it. But there's a lot of really interesting stuff that's going on in there.
Yeah.
And people love those books, and it just kind of I can't get my fantasy fix from television and movies, so I got to do something.
Go elsewhere.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, and it'll keep me busy for a long time, and I just have to figure out a way to keep getting free subscriptions to Audible for the last 10 books plus the prequel. So,
well, you know, you got 2.5 years apparently because Amazon's stupid and didn't throw out everyone with that Rings of Power show. But
yeah,
you could always read this.
Oh, nice. Well, some of the audiobooks are done by Saruman from the movies.
Christopher Lee?
Christopher Lee, yeah.
Yeah. That's awesome.
So
that
he
guy,
did...
you talk about a guy who lived a life.
Uh-huh.
Man. He
also did voice work for some like metal bands and stuff like that. Not like, he wasn't like singing or anything like that, but he would do like intro type dialogue for songs and things like that. It's kind of cool.
That is pretty cool. I also, by the way, finally found, I think I have, I'm not 100%, but I found the original copy of the Hobbit book, the very first Tolkien book I read when I was in elementary school in 3rd grade. I think I found it, and I plan on purchasing it so I can have it.
Nice.
Because I've been specifically looking for that copy. And yeah, and then all I have to do is I've read them, but I got to get the History of Middle Earth books. And then I pretty much, I think be caught up. I know this one dude just released The Fall of Numenor or something like that this year, but I'm not really concerned about that. Like I'll get it probably eventually, but
I've got it in my Amazon queue. It's not that expensive.
Yeah.
It's a pretty good deal. Alrighty, well, let's go ahead and get into the show. And we will get talking about Violent Night, since we didn't get to last week.
Let's do it.
Well, welcome back, everybody, to episode 124 of The Underground. I am joined every week by the one, the only, Joseph.
Wild West pimp style.
And I know you couldn't hear that, Joseph, so I will fix that as soon as I'm done with the intro.
I wasn't even going to say anything, man.
And I am your other host, David.
Sexual Tyrannosaurus.
And this is the show where every week we remind you.
Give me the meat and give it to me raw.
Joseph has no idea which one of the things I played.
I'll just laugh.
At the end of that. Canned laugh. Oh, I need a canned laugh. I've got like a plan to get so many different ISOs for the show, and I just haven't taken the time to do it. I think I'm gonna have a whole row of like synthetic man ISOs.
Dude, the reason why that you haven't had time to is because we need the value for value system to pick up here. If we had that. The value for value system and donations where we would like for them to be, and hopefully, in the near future, it becomes that reality for us, then we could do this in a more full-time capacity so that we could obviously provide for ourselves and families and stuff like that. And if you don't know, the value for value system is a listener-based support model that we borrowed, used, and got the idea from Adam Curry and John C. Dvorak, which was Adam's idea. And Adam got it from a church service. And then when I found that out, I was like, yeah, I'm stupid, because obviously church, that makes sense. But yeah, basically it's just a way for us not to be beholden to any sponsors or advertisers. And then as well, we don't have to sell you established titles, Kamikoto knives, or Raid Shadow Legends. It's just we're entirely supported by you because you get to determine the value our content is worth. So our podcast episodes, our YouTube videos, our YouTube shorts, our clips on social media, if you enjoy them and you like them and you want us to continue to making content that entertains you, then consider becoming a supporter. If you think that's worth a night at the movies, by yourself, or, going on a date with someone, if you think it's worth a stick of gum, whatever. You get to determine that, and you can determine that by going to the description in our video or in the show notes of our podcast and click the direct.me link. There you will find our PayPal link donation, our Bitcoin wallet, and all of our social media links as well.
Hang on. Don't use that Bitcoin wallet. I got to take that off the thing. We're not using that anymore. We got to get a new one. Yeah. After all that stuff.
Use that.
So yeah, after that, all that stuff went down with like.
Oh yeah.
I want to say FNT, but that's not right. Y'all know what I'm talking about.
Yep, with old Fro dude. What's his name?
I want to say DSP, and I know that's not right. There's too many. What
was his name? FTX, right?
FTX, and the guy is S. Shoot, it's slipping my mind. I've heard it like a million times over the last week. I can't even remember. Anyway. Joseph, when you look things up, you...
Sorry.
Yeah.
What?
You put like a massive like halt. Like,
oh yeah, I thought you're
just like you just start typing. You're like, yeah.
But so anyway,
Sam Bankman-Fried. Thank you, Jenna.
Sam Bankman-Fried.
This is why we love the troll room. And I'm sorry for interrupting you in the middle of your spiel, but you said Bitcoin wallet, and I'm like, oh crap! I was like, I completely forgot. I needed to.
Well, thanks for reminding me where you interrupted me, because I completely forgot where I was.
Yeah.
But. So yeah, you can go to our direct.me link. You'll find a PayPal link donation. Don't use the Bitcoin wallet. You also find our YouTube, Odyssey, Rumble, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter accounts. And if you're in the troll room right now, then you scroll up to the top and you can donate, I thought, or did you not have it in there this time?
No, it's there. It's pinned to the top. You don't even have to scroll. It's just it's pinned to the top.
So there you go. And you can consider becoming a supporter. The other, monetarily, also you can donate any talent or that you may have, and if you want to invest time in helping us develop our platform, we will gladly take any and all help, whatever kind of talent you may have. Because the idea is that we kind of, you get credit if you help us develop in many ways. And so one of the things is if you become a donator, then you will get credit on your resume for being a producer, depending on the level to which you donate. So that's, you have regular producer for anything that's below $100. Once you get above $100, then that's associate executive producer. Once you get above $200, then that's executive producer credit. So yeah.
Also, join the Discord.
Yes.
Please. Come talk to us. I know that sometimes we don't always get to talk to people in the live chat. Like we do before we start the show and we do after the show is over sometimes. But typically in the middle of the show, unless we're looking for a specific answer to something, we're kind of just having a conversation. So it's just the way that works out for us. The show would go on forever if we stopped to answer every question in the troll room. And it's not really what it's there for. I mean, the idea of the troll room is for you guys to have fun, to joke around, to give us answers when we can't remember something, which happens quite regularly. And that's part of it, to troll. It's what we like. It's really good for engagement as well, but it's a lot of fun to have people there who are messing around and doing their whole deal too. So
and having a good time.
Yeah, exactly.
And help us out too when we have brain lapse and stuff like that.
Yeah. So that is. Sorry, I cannot spell tonight. That's what we're looking for from y'all. And tonight's topic is Violent Night, which we were going to do last week, but we talked about Blood Origin for close to 2.5 hours. I'm not exactly sure what it capped in on, because I think we did have a couple topics before that. But yeah, that's where we're at tonight. We mentioned it a little bit last week, but nothing too spoilery. It was more of just a, hey, it's a recommended watch. We'll talk about why next week.
Yeah. And next week, we're going to do our top movies and TV shows of next year, along with our worst movies and TV shows of this past year. Say not next year, next week.
Yes.
And then after that, we got the God of War stream, and then we're gonna be reviewing The Last of Us. So yeah. David knows the game. He knows the lore. He's you would call an expert at it.
Jeez.
And I know absolutely nothing.
See, this is the problem, Joseph, is that people are going to take you seriously when you say stuff like that, and then they're going to get pissed off when it's like, Joel never did that, or blah, blah, blah.
Come on, David. You're the residential Last of Us expert for the Underground.
I guess that gives me I guess that gives me a reason to go through the first game again. I don't know if I'll play the second game again. That's a slog.
A slog to get through.
Yeah. But
hey, for the #1 neurodivergent YouTube channel, that's not too bad. New year. This is about the time we had,
Scholar.
This time last year where we had a video blow up. So, 1 year out, we're at over 6,000 subs on YouTube. Podcast is doing great. Social media is doing great. And so we're just going to keep going up. We appreciate all of your support. And, sincerely and truly. And I know we talked about donating and the value for value system part. And I have a script. I'm going to find the script so I can not, stumble over my words when I do the value for value part. But
you have a whole thing. You have a whole thing written out.
I know. I have a whole script, but I don't use it because I like to be authentic and genuine. Not that a script can't be, because I don't think that just because it's a script doesn't mean that it's not authentic. But sometimes I just like having the the conversation aspect of it. You know what I mean?
It just takes
But
you got to practice.
Yeah,
man.
outside the money, if donating to us monetarily, that is important. Whether if you think it's $5 or worth the night out, the movies and dinner, you can share our podcast, our YouTube channel, by word of mouth, on social media, all that good stuff.
Sweet. All right. Well, without further ado, let us jump into Violent Night. Joseph, where'd you go?
Something fell.
Oh my gosh, dude! I told you
here.
I told you to leave it.
I'm good. It fell right by me. I'm good. It's okay if I go away. I got my headphones on. I can't hear you. Let's get into it, though. Don't call it out, David.
Bro, you like...
Jake said rapture. I raptured and came back.
Oh, man. Okay, so where do we want to start? I know last week we kind of gave a general overview. Have your thoughts on the movie changed at all? Has your opinion of the movie changed at all in any form?
No.
No.
It hasn't.
Okay.
Again, I don't think. Again, my general thoughts for the movie, just to remind everyone, was that it's a fun movie, a really fun movie for me, at least it was, and I think it's a pretty decent movie. Is it going to? I don't think it was made with the intention to be the best movie ever. I think it's a movie that knows exactly what it is and drives it home. You know what I mean?
You're triggering me already. What does it
it's
mean?
Like,
what does it mean to not go? Hang on, no. Listen to me, because I'm trying to explain to you what I mean. Okay. What do you mean by it's not trying to be the best movie ever? Like,
I guess what I mean is that I don't. Yeah.
Why in a project? Let's say you as Joseph decided one day, like, I'm going to create something media related, TV show, movie, write a book, whatever the case may be.
Why wouldn't you try and do your best?
Exactly. Like, wouldn't you find it insulting if someone... wouldn't you find it insulting if it's like, well, it doesn't seem like they were really trying to make the best thing ever. Now, that might be the case because realistically, like, I don't exactly know what that means. But, like, we're trying to make things, like, make sense when we talk about them. And so, like, I'm always just really curious because people like to say a lot of really interesting things. As you've learned. And you were making fun of me earlier because I send you like a million things, but I do it on purpose because that's the kind of stuff I want us to typically avoid. Like, we're not always going to get there, and we're not always going to have time to get through like every little minutia of that stuff. But I think it makes us better because it makes us think about the things that we're saying and the way that we're trying to explain media.
Yeah, it makes us be well thought out and reason well. And words matter and your thoughts matter. I think you're exactly right. That was a poor way to put it.
I'm not.
I just think that they're not trying to. Again, I don't mean that they're not trying to make a great movie or.
See what you're doing? You see what you're doing? Do you see what you're doing?
I think they just know exactly who they are.
Well, that's what I mean? They know the type of movie that they're making, and it's okay. Like, Violent Night is. I want to say schlocky, but I don't know if that's really the right. They're not trying when someone sets out to make Schindler's List, or they set out to make something like 1917. It's not the same thing as someone who's trying to make a movie about Santa Claus like fighting mercenaries, right? So that's kind of like what I'm getting at is that there are different types of media, and they're trying to accomplish different things.
Their goal is different.
Yeah, it's the same way. Like, think about, one of my favorite Christmas movies is Gremlins. Like, Gremlins isn't the goal of Gremlins isn't setting out again to make something that, for instance, the people, the Oscars are going to go like, we want to nominate this for best picture. Like, I don't think that's their intention. They're typically, and this is me kind of trying to steel man for people who are creating movies. They're setting out because they have a really interesting idea, and they're trying their best to bring that to the screen. So the guy who directed this didn't write the script. But I imagine his goal as the director is to try to bring this to life the best way that he possibly can.
Right.
You know? And I think that you and I can, because we've done this in the past, I think typically we can tell when something is being done like it's lazy.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of oozes off the screen.
Versus when you could tell people put in their passions behind the project.
Right. So a recent one for me that I think that I could make a really good argument for if I had the time was Thor: Love and Thunder. I'm not sure, and I don't know if it was kind of a Taika Waititi thing where he didn't really care about the project, and because he didn't care about it, that went down to everyone else who was working on the project as well, because other than maybe oh my gosh, his name just slipped my Christian Bale. Other than Christian Bale, a lot of the cast, it felt like to me that they were phoning in their performances. And I say that because all of those other actors, I've seen them in other things where they're trying and they're doing much better. Even Tessa Thompson, who people typically make fun of because she has like one facial expression. Right. But I've seen her in other stuff where she's putting in more of an effort in, you know?
Yeah. She was good in passing.
And
we reviewed that earlier last year.
Yeah. And so that's kind of where I'm getting at with that, is that though there are ways to do that, and I was watching some different mainstream outlets. I was not their full reviews, but I was like clicking through stuff. And one of the things I've realized that drives me crazy is when someone will say, oh man, like one guy, what was he talking about? Oh, he was talking about dialogue in a game. And he was saying, oh, people are criticizing this game for its dialogue, similar to Horizon Zero Dawn from earlier this year. And it's like a passing comment, and then as if the people listening to him know exactly what he's talking about.
Right.
And I won't say it's lazy, because I haven't really made a formal opinion about when people do that. But you're doing a disservice to the people that are watching your review when you say something like that, especially in something where you have the time to edit in clips, commentary, things like that. It's IGN though, so every review is going to be like 8 to 11 minutes, and they're going to move on with their life.
Right.
They're very like cookie cutter, I think would be a good way to put it. And so
they found their sweet spot that works for them. And I think there's a lot of people who do that. You know?
And so that's one of those things that typically, I know sometimes we're pressed for time, so we're not always going to be able to get into those things. But it's why, you know, because we do this pretty much every week, there's time to go back and talk about those things. Yeah. You know, the subject will come up again, even if it's not necessarily brought up in the current week of what we're talking about. Right. You know, we talk about pacing a lot. We talk about a lot of that stuff. Yeah. And so, yeah, I just, you know, it's not to pick on you. It's more of because I think there's interesting conversations that come out of that stuff. And
yeah, like, I completely agree.
If we're gonna say something like, even if we say like, oh, I think this movie was lazy, it's like, okay, well, why? You know, because
what parts? What convinced you that was lazy? Versus...
And it gets down to the minutia, because instead of it just being like, well, it's a lazy production, you could say, man, you know, it doesn't seem like whoever wrote this really had a passion for what they were writing. It's something we say about a lot of modern fantasy. It's very poorly written, and we back that up by showing clips of a character going, F you effing FF, dwarf F, and you're just like, that's what you got? That's the dialogue?
Whereas when you take a page from the book, it's completely different, or, you know, or even what Peter Jackson and the writing crew did for the Lord of the Rings project, which was they reuse lines from Tolkien within the show or within the movie. And then in some of the lines, because they have read it so much and because they had so much passion and care, that they made up, like always follow your nose, that, you know, it was so good that the people who wrote the Rings of Power thought that was Tolkienian, but it's not. Peter Jackson and his team wrote
exactly.
that.
Exactly.
So I mean,
so good on Peter Jackson then for at least being able to fool the Rings of Power folks.
yeah.
I mean, I don't know if that's like a real high bar, but at the same time,
Yeah, that's true.
don't worry
And so
though.
I think like, that kind of deal works in there where there's a lot of people who wouldn't know that kind of deal because there's so much care put into the writing. Whereas
Yeah.
you look at something like, I think, you can almost put a bar at, you have The Witcher and then Blood Origin, and you see how Blood Origin is a step down from that, where The Witcher's already, not great writing and not accurate to the source material, as faithful as you and I probably think it should be, right? But even Blood Origin is like, oh man, you went from there and took a big step down.
Dude,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, and people are still sending us messages that are like, well, the books are actually about Ciri. And it's like, you are misunderstanding the point completely. It's like, she can be the center of what's going on. I mean, she is to a degree that kind of modern joke of like the key to everything or whatever, which again,
Which is fine.
Again, that as a driving force for a story isn't the problem. The problem is that now it's become a meme because they do it in everything, and there's typically some sort of like ideological agenda behind them doing it that way.
Yes.
Exactly. It's not the actual material, it's how it's being used. And so that's why with something like Violent Night, for the most part, it just kind of it knows what it is. And I mentioned this last week, other than some of the pacing in it, I think it's good. You know, I'm not. It's not a movie.
Part I disagreed with you. I think you had an issue, and we'll get there. With
Still do. Yeah.
David and the little kid have a conversation, and I don't think, if I remember correctly, I don't think your critique was that they have a conversation where it kind of, brings home the warmth of a Christmas movie.
Right.
But the fact that it was a pacing problem for you because they stayed in that scene for too long.
Yes, the movies, I would say, and I was thinking about this today, I think the movie's biggest issue is that it gets a little unfocused in places, and I think that's one of them, because it really, and this is, the reason I think, okay, sorry, let me back up. To a degree, am comparing it to Die Hard.
Okay.
Die Hard's a superior film. It's a classic. And one of the things that Die Hard does really well that this movie slips on is that it's not focused on David Harbour's Santa Claus the way that Die Hard is on John McClane. Like, John McClane is the character that you are watching this movie through. Like, he's your protagonist. The only time that it's really switching over to other characters is when it's the villains. And they're not trying to put, and because it's not just the little girl, and we'll get into it, but they focus on the little girl. They focus on the family a lot more than I think they should, and they focus on the mom and dad way more than I think that they should. There's a scene in particular towards the end of the movie that is just like, y'all, you're at your climax. Like, why are you doing this? Like, it feels like a pause in order to give them a very long moment, which you could have gotten done much quicker. And that's what I'm talking about. Is it's like the pacing, like it's like all this stuff's happening, but it takes a little while to get to the payoffs, and it's for me, it's just too long. Like, it's too long to get to those things.
So I agree with you on the, and as we've said, as I've already said, we'll get there, but I agree with you. They spent too long of time on the mom and dad. I don't think they should have brought, spoilers by the way, the other team in. I think they should have just left it at the original goons. I
could understand that.
Bringing second team in, I think was a waste. And then spending too much time focusing on the family. I think after the first few scenes with the family, you get enough to know who they are. Again, not that they couldn't have them like in a smaller capacity throughout the film.
Sure.
But like, I enjoy the part where the sister's boyfriend attacks the guy. And,
yeah. So spoilers, by the way, from like here on in, because we're about to talk about this entire movie.
And he jumps out the window.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, that's a great touch. That's hilarious.
Exactly. And
then cut back to you can get the reactions and stuff like that. Quick film, and then cut back to David, right? But I think there was too much time invested in the family. It's like, and again, too, we're not really. You don't really feel bad for the family because they're terrible. All of them are terrible, with the exception of the guy's wife and daughter, right?
Yeah, I think you're right.
And it's like, okay, so are we supposed to be rooting rooting against the villains, or who are actually the villains in the story? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, they're both kind of in that capacity, but I do think a more character-driven story like Die Hard would have been better. I think that's a solid point you make.
Yeah, and I just think if they had focused a little bit more on him, really, honestly, I think if they had, and I don't know. It gets really difficult when you get into the editing process and sort of the mindset behind that. And it would be really, I wonder if there are any like behind the scenes. One of the things I think that's missing a lot with movies nowadays is behind the scenes stuff. It's really hard to get a hold of a lot of the time, especially if you're renting a movie through streaming or you're watching something on Netflix. There aren't always a lot of special features, and they're not as predominant as they were 10, 15 years ago. And I think that's a misstep on the part of a lot of these movies, like director's commentaries, because that's the kind of stuff where you can get a mind into it, sometimes, not always, but you can get a mind into the way that the movie was created and what they were trying to accomplish. And it does give you a certain amount of respect for the process. Even, for instance, if you're like, well, I don't really like this movie, or I think this movie kind of sucks, but you hear like potentially the passion that like went into it, and part of you's like, well, dang, man, like I still feel this way about your movie, and I think I can make a pretty good argument for why it's not very good. But some of that stuff is interesting, the way, and they don't do that anymore. Like, I tried listening to one, I think it was the Jojo Rabbit one, and Taika Waititi, he's just kind of, I guess it's like when he's not interested in something, he doesn't put the effort in. At least that's kind of the vibe that I get from the guy. And so it's like, he made Jojo Rabbit. I think he put a lot of effort and a lot of love into that movie, but it's like, when it comes to other things, it's just like, I don't really want to do a commentary about this or whatever. And so it was a weird one.
When it comes to House of the Dragon, we kept saying they need to stop doing that.
Yeah, it's so funny. Like, HBO puts so much effort into it, and sometimes you're like, y'all quit. This isn't doing what you think that it's doing.
There's definitely a sweet spot in understanding, because a lot of times and if you caught our House of the Dragon reviews, what we would say is that, the showrunners would say, this is what this scene means, but you could, from the scene they were referring to, take an opposite meaning from that.
Yeah.
Than what they were trying to convey.
Yeah. They
would say something like, hey, regarding this scene, this is exactly what it means. Maybe surrounding a political event, but it's like, you filmed that way before that political event happened.
Yeah. Well, that's what they said about Andor, and then everyone's like, they were lying. They were just saying that. It's to appear a certain way to their fellow LA folks, I think.
Yep.
But yeah, I think you're right. And what I would find more interesting, especially when it comes to something like House of the Dragon, is, hey, why don't you get some of the people who designed the sets, the costumes,
talk about it.
Talk to the CG artists, like give them, instead of talking to like one of the showrunners who's just like, well, we think that in the year 2022, blah, and you're just like, oh no, like no.
We just want to hear about the story.
Why are you passionate
and the
about
behind
the
the scenes? Yeah.
Well, and we played that clip from Paddy Constantine where he was talking about his inspiration for his role for Viserys, and it's like one of the best.
Yes.
Why isn't everyone like this? Yeah. Where is the
every time,
that passion?
Every
needs
time
to be
we
everywhere.
say his name, we should have the applause.
I wonder if there's a
ISO.
I need to find. He needs his own
Bravo.
ISO. He does. Yeah, he needs his own ISO. We need to immortalize Viserys in the show, and I need to figure like a really good one for him. I don't know what that would be. I'll look into it.
My wife was wanting to watch it again, which would be I think our third or fourth viewing of it.
Dang, dude!
And
I haven't even watched it again. I've had so much going on.
I can't go through the emotions with the series. I can't.
All right. Let's get into Violent Night. So we're gonna start out with the sort of like cold open to the movie, where
Literally.
we get introduced to our protagonist, Santa Claus. Nobody can see it on the stream. You're good.
Yeah. You see what I'm saying?
Yep, that's hilarious. He is in a bar, and we essentially get the introduction to what we're going to be dealing with this version of Santa Claus. Now, what I really like about this scene is it's a pretty good setup that shows he has some more than human strength, right? So there's a part where he cracks that walnut with his hands, and the lady even like looks at him when he does it. Let's see if I can find the shot. Oh, right here. So he cracks this walnut with his hands, and after he does it, she has this like subtle look, right?
Right.
Just again, this is stuff that I really like to see in movies where she doesn't go, "Whoa, man, how did you do that?" It works really well, and it's a very human thing that he does something like that, while he's also kind of making these vague hints about like
who he is.
Like he's saying these things, and they all think he's joking because it's Christmas time. There's Santas everywhere.
Right.
But she sees that, and it's weird. But it's not so weird that she's going to say something or like freak out about it. It's just unusual.
Which is a good through line through the film because, you know, he's telling them who he is, and obviously they're not believing him because,
Right.
as you know, there's Santas everywhere. But then no one else through the film believes that he is who he is until the very end.
Yeah, he literally does magic at points in front of people, and they're like, "Wait, how do you do that? Where'd he go? What?" And it's a very interesting. It's a very interesting idea for the way that they handle like people not believing in Santa in this, and how that affects their ability to perceive what he's actually doing.
Yeah.
I just think it's really cool.
I agree. I completely agree, and I enjoy the back and forth between him and the other Santa, and you kind of get a glimpse into, you know, David Harbour starts explaining, or Santa Claus, I should say, starts explaining, you know, how basically embittered he is with Christmas and how greedy everyone's become, how envious because you just and gluttonous because you just want more and more. You know, the car was shiny last year, but now I need a new car this year. You know, and no one really cares about other people. And so he's kind of just tired, wanting to hang up the boots.
Yeah, and I think it works really well. One of the things this movie does, one of the things this movie does well is really straddling that line between hopefulness and despair is probably not the right word, but I guess hopelessness.
Gloomy?
I would say like hopefulness versus hopelessness, where it gives you these moments where you're kind of it's like that traditional these moments where you feel like you're watching this traditional Christmas movie, and we're going to talk about one of them in a second because it's one of my favorite parts. It's probably the thing I laughed at the most in the movie, and I think it's again such a great setup moment for the kind of movie you're about to start watching. This opening scene I thought was very, very, very well done.
I agree.
And so it's
okay, you just got to wait.
No, you're good. You can't see it. You cannot see it.
Okay.
I don't think so. We're delayed just a little bit, but we can't. No, you can see it. You just have to leave it. We're not stopping in the middle of this for you to fix that. Get back in here.
I'm in here.
We're having a conversation.
I'm here. I'm gonna get my wife to fix it.
All right. So, like you were saying, they're going through this whole situation about how Santa Claus is no longer happy with anything, and he gets up to leave, and he leaves this the bartender a present. I'm just gonna stop recording till you get it fixed.
I wasn't getting it fixed. It was falling more on me. I apologize. Go. I'm leaving my camera off for now.
What?
I'll bring it back on, but I'm leaving it off for now. It's good. We can go.
All right. So, like I was saying, she is given this present, and this is kind of the thing that makes her realize that he was Santa Claus, because it's for her nephew, something like that. I think it was for one of her relatives.
Yep.
And she goes up to the roof, and
It's
she's
a video
like,
game, I believe.
yeah, and she goes up to the roof, and she's like looking, and she sees him flying away. And this is what I loved about this, because I got this this was a very warm moment, right, where it's just like, oh, someone who's like, oh my God, Santa Claus is real. I can't believe it. And it's like that childlike wonder again. She's, getting that back, and he pukes on her.
Oh, dude, I died laughing. I'm like, oh, that's so nasty, but hilarious at the same time. It's just a good touch. And I think you put it in a good way that it lets you know the type of movie that you're about to watch, and irreverent Christmas movie. Yes,
and those are to a degree some of my people think I'm when I talk to people who aren't really into this stuff the way that we are, and I tell them like, oh yeah, some of my favorite Christmas movies are the ones that go very much against the traditional Hallmark sappy, poorly written Christmas movies. It's like I like some of the old stuff. I like Miracle on 34th Street. I really like the Muppet Christmas Carol. It's one of my favorites. So it's like there is room for that. The problem is there's so much of this like trash out there now. And I don't think this movie is a commentary on a lot of that. It would have been kind of interesting if that was in mind when they were making this. But at least for me, I'm always really happy when movies like Krampus come out. There's one called, is it called Deadly Night? I'm gonna look this up because I cannot remember the name of this movie. But it's a Christmas movie that, and I won't ruin it. I'm gonna look up the name because I thought it was pretty good. It's like this indie movie about a girl who goes over on, I think it's Christmas Eve or it's sometime right around Christmas, to babysit this kid, and intruders end up attacking the house. But what's actually going on isn't revealed until about halfway through the movie.
Right.
And it takes kind of a really interesting turn and gets kind of wild. Now, I have issues with the movie, too. I think some of the pacing is a little weird in that, too. I feel like, in general, my problem with a lot of movies is typically that, because it just sometimes they linger a little too long on things where it's like, hey, maybe we don't need all of this. Maybe this is a little too much. I'm going to look up what that's called. But like Gremlins is another one that is a Christmas movie, and it's kind of like about everything going wrong around that time. So I always enjoy when those movies come up, because typically they're far and few between the
happy
the princess
Christmas family.
Yeah, the journalist who becomes a princess and marries a prince in a made-up country during Christmas, and you get 30 of those every year to like one violent night. Yeah.
It really is.
And they're always, dude, they have it's always the exact same formula. Yeah. They just,
these Hollywood companies are just copy and pasting everything.
Yeah. They just change out, they change out a couple things. So it's like, instead of a prince and a woman who becomes a princess, it's like the shopkeeper and the woman from LA, right? Or it's like, oh, maybe it's the guy from LA and the woman is the shopkeeper this time. It's that kind of stuff. And it's just, I don't know. It's so soulless to me.
Yeah.
Those movies are
there's no life behind it.
Yeah, those movies are the like when you look at the consumer culture that surrounds Christmas, then when everyone's kind of like, some of that's really gross, those are the movies that I find to be the equivalent of that.
Yeah.
Where it's just like, churn it out. It's like there's no passion or effort put into it. It's sort of, I don't know.
Content for content's sake. Yeah. Just, we got to get stuff out. Now, I know what you mean. I think I enjoyed that this movie straddled the line between being a cynical Christmas movie, which I think there are a lot of most of the modern day Christmas movies have a cynical bent to them, but at the same time, that kind of traditional Christmas spirit is brought into it as well. So it straddles that line very well for me, to where it doesn't really cross too far over one way or the other, but kind of really presents the traditional Christmas message in a different package, right?
Yeah.
Christmas spirit. It's definitely, and I don't know if you would say an homage to Die Hard, but sprinkled in with some Home Alone and Elf.
There's definitely the movie that I was trying to remember is called Better Watch Out.
Better Watch Out,
yeah. If you're gonna watch it, don't look at anything about it ahead of time, because it really, I don't want to say the movie fully depends on the twist, but I think for the first viewing it really helps impact like watching it, in the same way, there's some other movies that are like that. So you could read that one if you want to. I think that comment's hilarious.
Jenna said in the troll room, I wished anything paid as much attention to me as David does his phone during the show. That's too good. That's too funny.
I was looking up the movie.
Yeah, you were. That's okay.
It is the troll room.
Yep.
Yeah, crazy trolls.
And that's what we appreciate. But
yeah, so
I very much, I thought this played well to having the cynicism come in along with the warmth of what a Christmas movie typically brings, and boom, that's what this movie is. And I thought I think in this, when we got this opening scene and then it cuts to the family, I was like, oh, just go back to David Harbour. I was like, just spend like 2 minutes here. I very much enjoyed the little kid more so than everything else, and I think they could have kept in, more of his interaction with her and less of everyone else.
I probably would have been fine with that. I think it's where it was located and the way that it's not even feels, the way that the movie just stops during those scenes, where it's like it's almost a hard stop, because I think he has two interactions with the criminals, and then the movie takes a good bit of time for the two of them to just start talking to each other.
Yeah.
And excuse me. And I think that's where the problem is. So instead of like the story continuing to move forward, what it is that they just kind of take this time where it's like, okay, now is the time where we have to get the little girl and Santa to connect and have a bond. And I think there probably was a better way to have that interaction.
Go about that.
Yeah, to make that still work while the movie continues the kind of pace that it was on. Because when you have the style of movie, and it kind of has its build up, the criminals come. We can get to that part too. We have this build up of we're introduced to the family. If this wants to start working, here you go. So the family is introduced. We go through the process. You get the idea that the mother and father, they're no longer
are separated.
Yeah, they're no longer together, and she's aware of it, and they're trying to kind of just, all right, we're gonna be a family for this Christmas. It's like your kind of typical setup for any kind of movie, and that's fine, right?
The wife is like, I'm not doing this for you, implying I'm doing this for her. So there's still some tension going on between both of them.
We get introduced to this guy, which, dude, right off the bat, I was like, well, he's not going to make it very long.
Yeah.
When he goes, I wanted today off, or I asked for today off. I'm like, sorry, you poor soul.
Yep. He's done for.
And so they get to the house of
the billionaire.
Yes, his mother, which I'm pulling up the cast right now so that I can at least talk about.
And it was interesting because it cut right away to, the guy on screen, and you could tell, okay, so this is going to be somehow he's going to be part of the villain. And as it goes through everyone there, you can pick up on who the shady people are.
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty obvious.
Yeah, they do a pretty good job of it because some of them are like, okay. And I wasn't sure if they were going to go for we want you to think some of them are, but they're really not.
Mm-hmm.
But this movie is very straightforward, and it's not a criticism. I think it's completely. We talk about this all the time. Sometimes having a simplistic plot is a good thing. You don't have to have the most complicated thing with double crosses and triple crosses and, I was really this, or, it turns out that I used to work for Santa and I'm going to, have a redemption arc or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it turns out it's all in your dreams, but if you dreamed it actually happened on the 5th Friday night of the 7th year.
Yeah, it doesn't have to get complicated. It can be just your typical straightforward movie, and I think that's totally fine. I like this long shot,
establishing shot of the house.
This is what
it takes you through all the rooms. It's hitting some ornaments that may be used later. It's showing you the different people who are around. You're kind of getting an idea of who some of the baddies potentially could be, and all the while getting a look at this billionaire's huge house.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. They do a pretty good job of really establishing everything and letting you know this is going to be the main stuff. I even like this part right here where he pokes the Santa, because this actually has this is set up for a scene later on, and it's so funny because you might not even realize it, where it's just like, it's a little thing, and it's just, here's a shot of this Santa, because of course, like, it's Christmas time and they're setting all this stuff up, and you would expect this to be the way that the house worked, but that actually comes back later on, and I think that's kind of cool that they took the time to do that. Details in a movie that are good are great.
Mm-hmm.
It's nice to have that kind of stuff.
The subtlety versus, and you think about Rings of Power. When you first get the vision of the Queen, it shows the wave destroying everything in Numenor, right? Just completely destroying the island of Numenor. When we talked about it in our review, what it would have been a better idea is you have the Tree of Nimloth and the petals are falling. That's all you see. But it's foreshadowing.
Yeah, they go real hard into letting you know exactly what's going on, because they don't trust that the audience is going to be able to pick up on certain things. Typically, that's, I think, what happens. And I don't know, honestly.
That's what we mean with the depth and the nuance that goes into being a good writer, is you have something like that versus just showing the audience everything and thinking your audience is dumb.
Yeah.
Or being able, what we explained the opening shot of this, you get that scene of him crushing the nuts with his hands and the shell, right? And the lady doesn't exclaim how powerful he is or anything like that, just gives him a look. To that nature.
And that stuff works, and it doesn't have to be like, I think this is something that I'm still learning and working through as we've been doing a lot of this. Writing does not have to be complicated. I don't know for sure if that's the mindset now, because that used to be my mindset behind the way stuff was written. And I think that was almost just this thing that wasn't true that I believed for a really long time. That it's like, man, writing is so complicated, and the people who are able to get to a place where they're making like Hollywood quality movies, they're just superior writers. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That was kind of where my mindset was for a long time. But over time, it made me, one of the things that I realized is that sometimes the stuff that's more simple, and that when you have the ability to do something where you're writing a script and you're like, okay, how are we going to show that David Harbour's character is strong without making it just this obvious thing, right? Because they could have done something where he stumbles out of the bar afterwards and he like punches a hole through a wall. You know what I mean? They could have done that. Yeah. But instead they went for something that was more subtle, where he picks up the walnut and he crushes it with his hand. And if you're paying close enough attention, you're like, oh, he shouldn't be able to do that. And it was a nice little clue, like context clue, when the woman looks down at that and she has this puzzled look on her face, like, that's not normal. Like that's a little strange, but it's, you know, it's not something that she's gonna speak to him about. And so that's where you start to realize, like, you can have a pretty simple idea and a simple plot for a movie where you go, well, what if we did like Die Hard, but it's Santa Claus, and that's where we start. And then you go, okay, well, how do we make this work? You know, what's the premise? What do we do with the villains? Like, what, you know? And I think for the most part, the movie accomplishes that. I don't necessarily like some of the characterization of the family.
Mm-hmm.
It's just it's a little too goofy for me.
Hyperbolic. You know what I mean? Too
embellished. It's one dimensional for one thing. So it's like the mom, maybe not the mom so much, because I can kind of understand that character. I think it's the sister. To a degree, I'm okay with the boyfriend, and then so it's like the sister and her son. Yeah. They're just
too much embellishment of that stereotype.
Even the mom right here, she's kind of one dimensional. Like I would definitely listen to arguments otherwise, but I'm not sure that you can. The vapid boyfriend that you were talking about earlier,
even the dad is too.
Yeah. He only really has that one. Yes, that one might. I could understand like an argument against, because he does have very specific. Like he loves his family. He had a plan for how he wanted to get out from underneath his mother's thumb. But I wonder, because one-dimensional isn't always a bad thing. I think it's because they try to focus on all of these characters so much that it's like, all right, they're one-dimensional, but it's like you were saying before. It's like, well, why do I care about them? Like, it works in the case of the vapid boyfriend because of what happens to him. Why does Joseph look more like a youth pastor as the night goes on? I don't know. Dude, this troll room cracks me up. So yeah, I need
to get my hat sideways and some cool shades or something.
Goodness,
you know?
Yeah. The son kind of looks like a modern youth pastor.
Yeah, no, that's true. That is true. No, but I do agree. The sister, the son, his wife, and the mother too are pretty one-dimensional. You know, I guess like with the mother, you can make the argument that she's trying to keep everything secure, keep their lives going, keep being in control of everything. But I mean, there's really not much contextualization to her. She's just the wealthy.
She's the wealthy, controlling mother, and this is the thing, is that I think that's fine. Where the problem really comes in is, and maybe not so much with the mother,
spending too much time on them.
They spend so much time on them. When they accomplish things or fail at things, it's kind of like, all right.
Yeah, we don't really care, because none of them are shown to be really that good, with the exception of, I think there's an argument to be made with the husband and the wife, even though, with them, the parents of the little girl, I think there's an argument to be made that they're not that good either.
Like good people.
Yeah. Good
no,
people.
I think the whole family's very selfish, and I think I think that's the point. It's different degrees.
Right.
Which seems to be what they were going for. And I mentioned this last week. I am really over this description of Gen Zs. Like, can we do something else besides just the
same
my nose is stuck in my phone. Yeah, I'm trying to be the next like TikTok influencer. Like that whole it's just like, I mean, this was done. The Troll Room mentioned Knives Out earlier. This was done in Knives Out 4 years ago or whatever, and it was just kind of like it wasn't great then. I'm pretty sure there was a character like that in Knives Out. I might be misremembering that, but it gets used so much now. Actually, that might have been what I heard about
David?
Glass Onion.
Guess what's in Glass Onion?
Maybe that's what I had heard. I still haven't watched that for obvious reasons, but
that may be. Just think about Red Pill person.
That's the new. That's going to be one of the new things that we see all the time. I'm surprised that we haven't seen like the Andrew Tate character yet in a movie, like the very obvious Andrew Tate character, and I'm wondering if it's going to come in movies at some point, or it's just like, oh, this is what we're doing now. and that's the thing is like, it works. It works for his character's name is Morgan Steele, the boyfriend of the guy's sister.
Yes.
And he is.
He was great.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it. Very simplistic, but done well. And I enjoyed the sister too, personally. I thought, she was funny. You could tell they're just, again, using their mother. Just they need their mother for money and everything like that. And so, or, her mother, because he's just, her boyfriend or whatever. But you could tell that all of them pretty much use everybody in their lives. Yeah. So, but he was done well.
Did they ever? Oh no, they do. So I was trying to remember if they ever talk about what caused their separation, and I know it's not in super detail, but it was basically that he was spending too much time working for
his mother.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's why I would say like, he's probably got a little more dimension to him than some of the other secondary characters in the movie. But again, I don't think any of that would have been a problem if they just hadn't spent nearly as much time. Like, I'm okay with that one. We'll get to it, but there's the scene where like the family fights back against one of the criminals, and I thought for the most part that was fine. It's pretty funny, and it works as a plot point.
Yeah.
Okay, so
basically the sister is the ditzy, selfish, using character. The boyfriend is the hot, dumb actor,
washed up actor. He's like kind of washed up or wannabe.
Yeah.
Which it's one of the stronger characters of all of them, and a lot of that is the way that he's utilized in the movie.
Yes. And then, the son is your typical Gen Z, stuck in the phone, TikTok stereotype. The parent, the husband and wife or ex-husband and wife are hey, we're, we love our kids, so we're here, but we're mad at each other, and there's tension between us. We don't really care for each other, and we're, trying to resolve it, but not really. Type angst going on.
Let's see.
And then we get introduced to
the mother.
her mother,
or
their mother.
Oh yeah, excuse me, their mother. And she's just sort of, her entire character again is she's just sort of obsessed with her work. She doesn't really seem to care a whole lot about her family, or her idea of what caring for her family is different than what all of them want. They want like a real mother who pays attention to them, and not just someone who happens to be providing for them. And that's who she is. And I mean, honestly, man, bravo to the movie of kind of making a lot of different types of characters in this terrible people, rather than trying to go down that ideological route of like certain characters just happen to be better than other characters. You know what I mean?
Right. Everyone's terrible in their own right.
Yeah. They don't really necessarily lift someone up as being the best out of all of them. Even like Santa Claus has his faults and his failures, which is great.
Exactly. Well, but even at the end, or towards the end, when they're going to kill the sister, the wife, and the son, and the sister and the son say, "Hey, kill her," and then
that's
it kind of all goes. They start saying, "No, kill the son, no, kill the sister," and it goes back and forth like that. So,
So while all of this is going on, they put the little girl to sleep. I think, have they done the they haven't done the walkie-talkie yet, right?
No, they haven't.
Oh, Santa's on his way. That's right. They're still setting. They're still setting this up.
He's delivering kids.
He's
drinking milk.
The cookies are bad, and then he does after they put her to sleep.
Some alcohol.
Yeah, they give her a little radio, which they're lying to her and telling her that Santa, he can't respond. He probably won't respond, but you can use it to talk to him, and it's just that one's a very it's fine. It's a setup, but it's just one of those things where you're like, oh, I'm sure this will come back as a thing, which obviously it does. So Santa gets there. I think he steps in reindeer poop on the
on the
roof, which was pretty good. I like that. One of the things that's really nice about this, and I have to give them some credit for this, is Santa's not just overpowered in this. He has magical abilities. Obviously, he's fighting humans, but they didn't do the thing where it's just so unbelievable that some of these people would still be able to fight him.
Well, it's been what 1,000, 1,200 years since he's been in a fight because we get his backstory in this,
right?
A little bit of his backstory, and so even though he has magic, again, it's very, they put a governor on it, and it's tempered with, and so along with him being out of shape, not being able to having to warm up. He's drunk when he gets there. The alcohol still coming out of the system. All that building up.
Dude, he's a pretty good Santa. Yeah. I really do like this rendition, the way he's eating the cookies, and it's almost like he's a connoisseur of cookies at this point, and then he drinks the milk and he's like, oh, skim milk. There's little stuff.
I felt too. I'm like, I completely understand.
Yeah. It's like, come on, man. Whole milk's the only way to go.
Yeah.
And then dude, I love that he pours out the skim milk and he goes over and whatever I wasn't sure what alcohol this was.
Is that brandy?
And he just pours it right in there with the leftover skim milk.
Discoloration.
Yeah. And
he just does not care.
No,
he's completely indifferent. He's like, I'm ready to get this over with and be done.
Yeah, and it's so good too. Look at the discoloration in that, dude. It almost looks like tea.
Yeah. I was like, oh, that's nasty.
And he just doesn't care. And that's, again, it's those little things, those little character moments that
cues.
Yeah, because you understand where he's coming from. He just doesn't care anymore. It's just whatever. I'll just put the alcohol in with the leftover skim milk. And he sits down in the massage chair and keeps going. So now we get our real introduction to the villains. This is where the plot starts picking up. And for the most part, I'm good with this. I think all of this works out perfectly. John Leguizamo, we get our first look at him, which I like. I really like his character.
I do too.
Again,
I enjoy all the stupid Christmas names he has for everyone and everything.
I almost it's a really interesting thing, and I was thinking about this today, and it's more of just maybe a personal thing. So his code name is Scrooge, and I kind of wish, and maybe that this is me thinking that there was a way to add some depth to the movie or whatever. Mm-hmm. If there had been a bit of a redemption thing right there, or they could have gone a really cynical route where maybe he comes to an understanding of his wrongs, but it's just still too late for him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And he just does it anyway.
Yeah. There's some sort of because that's the idea behind Scrooge's character, is that and maybe there's some irony in the fact that he picked the name Scrooge, but he doesn't understand that story. Yeah. I was just thinking about that today before we started. I was like, oh yeah, they don't really go into that too much. Anyway,
he kills our boy, the security guard.
Yeah, just he's done, which we all knew was going to happen. Again, it's fine.
And then his crew starts cleaning house.
Yep. And Yeah, it's pretty violent. I do wish, I think they use quite a bit of like CG blood in this, which is something I'm always going to be critical of. I really wish that they would go back to using squibs and actually have practical effects going on with that sort of stuff. I think typically it just looks better. And in a movie like this that is, it has a bit of schlock to it, and it's a little, it's kind of got a more like pulp vibe to it. Vibe to it, meaning that it's not super based in reality. You know what I mean? So you can have a little bit of that over dramatic, like someone gets shot in the back and a big squib of blood gets like, shot out from the front of them or whatever. I kind of would have preferred that, but for the most part, I think everything is like balanced pretty well with the type of movie that they were going for when it comes to the action in the movie.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I think it was pretty obvious the CGI blood used, and I think anytime practical effects can be used, it's going to go better. But there's a lot more work to put in with that versus CGI. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it's yeah. Go ahead.
No. What were you going to say?
I was going to say. So they go into this safety room.
Yep.
And then he just comes out like, "Yep."
Yeah, like you weren't. And
this was a schlocky part you're talking about. This is the schlocky part you're talking about, where he could have easily died right here. You know what I mean? But the plot has to go on.
Oh, of course, yeah. It was really, this is one of those moments where you're like, bro, they could have they have guns. Both of these guys have guns. Like Glock. He's got one too. He's got his basically, and this guy would have, oh gosh.
And probably in this situation when you're guarding a billionaire like this, right? They as soon as he pulled out a weapon, it would have been pop. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it almost
in a real life scenario.
The easiest way to fix this is that the guards were working for Scrooge. Yeah, they were working for Scrooge the whole time. So she's like, shoot him, and then they just both look at each other, and they walk over and they stand next to him.
Yep.
It's how easily you can fix a moment like that. But they had to show. I understand that they had to show how dangerous he was, but you could have done that. Yeah.
You get that without this scene, though. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree. I think that you can still set up how dangerous he is, and also have this scene make sense just by having another moment where he's like, he has a gun or whatever, and he's like going through with his team and he's taking people out. It's easy enough. You show that he knows what he's doing.
Gator needs his gat.
But yeah, it's a little dumb. It's a little dumb that he's able to just like disarm these two guys.
And then of course David Harbour as Santa, he's sneaking around to see what's going on.
Yeah, man, I really do like he is the standout
performance
in this movie, which is great considering he's the main character.
Yeah, and I think we've talked about this before with you were talking about Siri earlier, right?
Mm-hmm.
And how we get comments in like series in the books, and it's like, guys, that's not the point. When you're talking about The Witcher show, that's our standpoint we're going through, and it's supposed to be, or it should be, from Geralt's perspective, right?
Yeah.
And with Geralt's perspective, I should say. And dadgum, I did it again. But anyway, especially when you have a big star like Henry Cavill, and when you look at Blood Origin too, they could have easily have done the show through Michelle Yeoh's perspective, or utilized her in a better way, in a much more prominent way than they did. Because I think you have to be able to understand who your standout performance is more likely going to be, or is, in your script, right? And be able to highlight that and go from there.
Yeah.
Rather than trying to, I get the feeling that so many showrunners, executives or whoever, they're so busy trying to, get these lesser known people elevated, because you should say, or utilize them more because they're cheaper, rather than kind of understanding what's making this tick. You know what I mean? Like, how can we, balancing that line of pleasing the audience. I don't even think it's about pleasing the audience. I think it's just about having common sense and realizing, hey, what's the best part about our show? And let's try and, we don't have to focus 100% on that, but how can we work everything around that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, it is about. I would say there is. You need to please the audience. It's how you make money.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
It's not hard.
What I
to
mean
please
is,
the
like, I
audience
think you
most of the
can.
time.
I think you can. You know, please the audience at the same time. That doesn't have to be your driving motivation. That there are times where you can cause controversy with that, right? Kind of like how Game of Thrones did in season 1.
Oh,
where the
well,
character died.
yeah. Sometimes,
Like that subversion.
well, sometimes the majority of the audience probably, because when you're talking about pleasing the audience, right? Let's take Marvel for instance. Like Game of Thrones is a decent example, but everybody turned on that. Marvel's still something that a lot of people haven't quite caught up to yet. For whatever reason, they just can't. A lot
Get out of the Matrix.
A lot of normal people who go to watch Phase 4 haven't figured out how bad it is.
Yeah.
And so they're still going to see those movies, and so you have a built-in fan base. Those people don't care. If you really want to make the money, and the reason why people talk about how Marvel has overstepped too much is because they've lost the part of the audience that was actually paying attention for the most part to what was going on, to the details that were there for the continuation of the story, and liked that it made sense. And now makes no sense, and a lot of those people are like, I'm out. I have no interest in this. It's kind of similar to what's been going on with the comic industry, even though that's a little more complicated. But yeah, that's kind of the idea.
Gamergate.
Oh yeah.
Everything.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
And Andrew Tate.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's like everything's just buzzwords now, man.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't even know. It's so funny, and man, I'm not going to get too off topic with this, but it's like there are so many they really are just buzzwords, and people throw them out, and you're like, yeah, but that's not why. Why? That's not what that is.
Yeah.
That's like this stuff does have a definition. But yeah, so Santa, he's trying to escape, which, again, this is kind of an interesting thing. It's like this family's in trouble. It's this terrible situation. And Santa's just like, I got to get out of here. He's like,
he's tapping his nose.
Yeah, doesn't care.
Traditional story of Santa Claus is that's how he gets his magic, is by tapping his nose. So that is lore accurate, by the way.
And
I like that nice touch.
Yes. Let's see. So he can't get out. His magic's not working. And he goes and hides behind the Christmas tree. Man, it's just there are just like scenes in this movie that I really do love, and this is one of them too, where it's like you have your kind of, they're just taking a sort of almost like a traditional Santa Claus movie and like taking scenes from those and flipping them on their head a little bit, where it's like, oh, the scene where someone catches Santa Claus behind the Christmas tree and he comes stumbling out, except this time it's an armed guy who's gone around like killing everyone in this house. There's just moments like this where you can really tell this is where the care for the detail of the story went into, of like, oh, what are the moments and the things about Santa Claus that we can, and I know people don't like this word anymore, but like we can subvert how the traditional idea of like Santa's role in stories like that, and he comes out behind the Christmas tree, he really likes milk and cookies, or you have, like I was saying earlier about that opening moment with the bartender, where it's this magical moment of her coming to this realization. That's in like all of these Christmas movies, but the thing that subverts that is when she pukes on his head. And that's that's good. Like that stuff is okay to do in movies, especially when there's a purpose behind it.
Well, and again, there's nothing wrong with subverting your audience's expectations, right? Or subverting within the script. There's just a difference in doing it in a way that makes sense, that's good, that's well done, versus a way that's done poorly.
Right. And if there's someone who comes out and Mauler, for instance, because it just always goes back to Last Jedi, because that's where the problem with both themes and subverting your expectations, that's where it started to go wrong, and people started using them as like dirty words, or people were just like, la la la, I don't want to hear about those things anymore, because Rian Johnson did them poorly. People pointed out that they were poor, but a lot of people didn't want to accept that.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? They didn't want.
It's just watching Star Wars with rose-colored glasses.
Yeah, definitely is. And so, yeah, he gets into his first fight. I'm actually one of the things I'm really surprised, and maybe they decided it was too much. I'm really surprised they didn't kill one of the reindeer. I was waiting for it. I was really surprised that they didn't decide, like, one of the reindeer gets shot, and then that's what makes them take off.
Oh yeah.
And so yeah, they just get shot at, and then the reindeer take off, which is good. It works for why he's stuck there, and he's lost his magic. He's lost his reindeer. So now he's getting into this confrontation with the
guard.
Yeah.
Or the robber, we should say.
Yeah. He's the criminal.
Yeah.
And so they get into a big fight. It's good. I mean, like, most of the action scenes in this, I don't remember, other than the one with the mom and dad towards the end, which I didn't care for at all. That was the thing. I was like, you guys should have just cut this from the movie. I think all of them are pretty well executed.
Yeah. And funny too when you see the Christmas decorations used.
Yeah. Even the next one where that was like, I was just like, all right, it's funny, so I'll give it to you, because I'm just like, I don't know if I'm totally on board with that's how that would happen.
The Christmas light in the eye.
Yeah, it was it was one of those things where I was like, it was kind of on the edge for me, and we'll get to it because I want to stay where we're at, but the climax of that, I laughed pretty hard at that part, and so I was like, I feel like I can forgive you just because you landed the joke in that moment.
Yeah.
So yeah, the first guy gets impaled on this like fake spike, and this is such a good reveal for this, where they both go out the window. I think they had showed earlier on what was out there, and so you kind of knew it was coming, but at the same time, it's really just this. You follow him up, and the guy's dead on this thing, and then they pull out, and he's like, oh no, and everything's going wrong for him. And if you've seen
and
Die
he's still
Hard,
trying to escape.
Yeah, if you've seen Die Hard, which a lot of people have, this is the kind of stuff that reminds me of this. Where it's like, obviously Santa's not a normal guy, but the idea being, it's just like he's out of a normal situation for himself, and he's frustrated because it's just like, this is not what I want to be doing right now. And ultimately he has to kind of come to that realization that he's got to step up and take control of the situation.
Yeah, and do the right thing, and because he tries to just deliver presents and not get involved in anyone's personal life.
Yeah.
So
and
that's when you get that moment of him seeing the family in there.
And the little girl, right? Isn't there?
Yep.
He eats the cookie. That part was really good too. So yeah, the family's in here, and the little girl.
I think he still leaves, and that's when he goes back to it will show him leave, and he goes to the security.
Yeah. So we get our. He's still watching this. So the idea is that he's still watching this through the window, and the little girl's scared, and that's the moment that he realizes like he has to do something about it. And he's like, crap. It's like the cookies were too good.
It shows her Christmas cookie of him. And it's like those heart-touching moments that keep it from just tilting too much into this irreverent, bloody action movie. You know what I mean?
Yep. And again, all of this stuff with John Leguizamo and the family is good. I mean, it helps push the movie forward. It's really more about him than it is the family, because there's only a couple like reveals that you get about them. And then at this point, for the most part, they're there to be used as the joke. And then I guess the idea, and it worked pretty well, is that you kind of care about the little girl's mom and dad as well. So it's like you have half the family that you're sort of like, they're the joke, and the other half of the family that you're like, man, I really hope nothing happens to them.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then we find out that really the whole idea behind why they're here is to get into this vault.
Yes.
Because there's 30 million?
300 million. Yeah. Untraceable.
Of course, it's all
it's always untraceable, because they got I know, I liked it because she got it. What was it?
I was gonna say
somehow in the Middle East through some war,
was given,
bill that had passed, and for money that was sitting there.
Yeah, she was given the money to give to people in the Middle East. I want to say it was for like a philanthropy type deal. And instead of doing that, she just stole it. So she never actually gave the money to anybody, and then she just like kept it for herself. Which is a pretty good. It was a pretty good little. I was like, oh, okay. I was like, I'm into that. I was like, I can buy that, and I'm very on board that someone, you know, in her position, in the way that they establish her, would do something like that. I thought that was pretty good.
I agree.
So they find. I can't even. There's so many of them, and they all have like the Christmas code names. They find him dead, and so they realize something's going on. And this is what I'm talking about about the pacing, is that this is sort of the beginning of it. Like they're really trying to build. They're still in that beginning phase. We're only like 30 minutes into the movie right here, so stuff is starting to build up. We get our first fight. We're getting the moment where the little girl is going to get in contact with Santa, and he has his second fight with this guy. Which is good, right? This is good pacing.
Yes.
This is what you want from a movie like this. It's why I said, like, when we get to the next, 5 to 10 minutes, or I might even be longer than that, man, where he's just spending a lot of time talking to her, which in my mind, if they could have just come up with a reason why he had her like in his ear or something like that, like it doesn't have to be anything super complex. It's like, oh, I have the little like piece for the walkie-talkie that I can put in my ear so I can talk to her like that. So in the middle of the fight, if he's still able to have those conversations with her, and then afterwards they have a moment where they have their heart-to-heart, and then you move on to the next piece. It's like you keep that flow going without having to stop to establish the relationship between the two of them, because it just and if you really wanted to do that, they could have found a way to have some sort of conversation with the little girl before all of this got started. Some sort of connection with her that gives you that moment, but it doesn't interrupt the flow of he is now in this very dangerous situation where he's trying to save this family, and he's like, you know what I mean? Because it goes for a while. Because I think after this guy, the next big action set piece is the one in the like, it's not a shed, but like their big.
Oh, the outhouse.
The shed area, where all of the tools and everything
the
are
garage
kept.
or whatnot.
Yeah, whatever it is. Anyway, let's talk about this.
Think you're right.
Let's talk about this for a second. So yeah, I like a couple things. The only thing that didn't work for me right here is when he goes, the safety's on or whatever. I'm like, that safety wouldn't have been on. That safety would not have been on.
Yeah.
That.
Not in that situation.
No. He would have
when he's going to look for someone specific. You know what I mean?
Yeah. You don't. If you're trained to use a firearm like these guys seem to be, I mean, they kind of established that that's the case.
You're going to hunt someone who has killed one of your guys.
Yeah, and you have security guards. His safety would not have been on. It's not like he put the safety on the second Santa like pulled the gun up. It's goofy. You could have done this. It would have been funny, but I do appreciate the way that it got handled after this. It would have been really funny if they almost pulled like an Indiana Jones moment, where he like shoots the guy in Raiders, where he's like, safety's on, and then he shoots him anyway. And it's like, no, it wasn't, dude. Something like, he was like trying to lie to him or whatever. That could have been good, but I like the fight. They
go back and forth. You could Santa stumbling over himself. He's not all there. But I like the touch of using the freaking stocking and stuffing it with, the pool balls. And smacking
the billiard balls. So he does that, and doesn't he
and
like?
Then it rips.
Oh, it rips, yeah.
Oh man, like no way that dude would have gotten up when he got smacked twice from those. Because there's like 3 or 4 of them he puts in there.
Oh yeah, but again, they're really trying to establish that it's like, though Santa has sort of supernatural strength, he's not Superman. Like, he's not going out here like punching holes.
I'm talking about the guard.
Oh yeah.
Twice.
Yeah, but that's what
But it's fine. It's an action movie.
That's kind of that.
Drum up the tension with it.
Right. We've talked about this in the past with suspension of disbelief, where it's like, in a real fight, they don't last long. But you can't do that for movies. Because if every movie was like that, it's like, oh, it's realistic fighting. It would just be like, great, that it's just not. It's not as entertaining ultimately when you don't have like a choreographed scene. Like, the idea behind that is, it's sort of like dancing. So yeah, but it's like this is that moment where he hits him with it and the balls get ripped out of the thing. It's pretty good. So yeah, the fight continues, keeps going. And then the other moment that's really good is he uses the magic bag to block the knife.
The knife attack.
Yep.
And then uses a present.
Yeah, yep.
And starts hitting him with ornaments.
And then he gets the one. This is really good too. And these are those like practical moments that I really like, where it's like they actually
Christmas
use
star,
makeup.
the tree topper.
And he gets him with that.
And he's like, "You're still coming after me? You're still alive? How?" I was like, "I'll just plug it in." And it zaps him to death, electrocutes him somehow.
And I'm like, I don't think that's how that works. But the moment that really got me with that is that he catches on fire. Which almost would have been better. Again, this is like detail stuff for me. But if he had like plugged it in and the guy was just like, what did you think that was going to do? And then it pops and he's like, oh no. And he like catches on fire from the ornament. Like you could have done something like that, but it works. It definitely works. And he's like, oh, like again, it's those subtle moments of him being like,
go ahead.
Oh no, it's just like his facial expression right here. I think is very good.
Yeah. Tired, exhausted, and surprised.
He's like, oh, that all right.
And then the smoke starts to rise.
Yeah, look at this look right here, where his eyes are like shifting to the side.
Yeah,
man, this is the kind of stuff. Scene. Yeah, man, this is the kind of stuff that's missing from a lot of acting. So like, I can play this for a couple seconds. I think we'll be all right. So he catches on fire, and he's like, oh. Okay. And that's like all of that. And you kind of have an idea of what's going on with him in that moment. Mm-hmm. And those are the things that we were always talking about, that it's the subtle moments of acting where an actor's able to use facial expressions to show what's going on without having to say anything. Where he's like, oh, he caught on fire. He's like, well, that's kind of weird. Like, all right. It's good, man. Oh, he starts doing this hand with the smoke.
Oh man! Then he takes his walkie-talkie, and that's when he gets in contact with the girl for the first time, because he gets on her channel.
So then,
her radio channel for those Gen Zers in the audience.
Yeah.
When you have a walkie-talkie, you have to get the right signal for it.
Trudy Lightstone.
And it's like his best student.
I love that.
Or best kid, I should say.
I love that this little touch with his little magic scroll. I thought this was cool. I think her last name is so funny because that's such a... to me, it sounds like a really stereotypical stuck-up family last name. Oh, the Lightstones, you know?
Yeah.
And it's cool, too, because it has like all of these little characteristics about her. So it's like listens to parents, kind to animals... invited weird kid to party.
Zero carbon emission.
Oh yeah, kept room clean. So that stuff's really cool, and it's just a nice little touch. And then he gets the naughty list of all these, and you can't really tell what it says for any of them. You might be able to with the guy who is currently known as Scrooge.
But it goes through all of the criminals there, and it's just naughty.
And we get our they finally kind of realize something's going on. They're like, this random Santa has gone around and taken out. I think at the time they only realized one of the guards, and I think they're about to find the other guy. They can't get a hold of him on the radio, and so they have their whole conversation right here.
Yeah, the main villain in Santa Claus, and Santa Claus says to him, maybe we need to have this conversation face to face, and then he replies, maybe we do, and he's like, Santa Claus is coming to town. Season beatings.
And again, you get to see how it's like, okay, and they explain a lot of this towards the end of the movie, but the reason why Santa is able to get hurt the way that he is essentially because people don't believe in him anymore.
Yes.
And so he's losing
spirit.
He's losing his magic. He's losing his essentially his immortality because people don't believe in him.
Yeah, which is a nice touch from Elf, the movie Elf. because in Elf,
Yeah, but they do that in a lot of stuff. It's not just Elf.
Well, there's, to me, that's kind of what other movie do they?
The Santa Claus
movies.
Yeah. Like pretty much any movie with Santa in it.
Belief and Christmas spirit. Yeah,
that's the thing, and it doesn't work the same way. I
don't know why Elf was the first thing that came to mind.
Yeah, well, it's like because it's that line from Elf. It's not a bad example, but it's something about singing loud to hear.
Yes.
To fill the world with Christmas cheer or something like that. I haven't watched Elf in a couple of years. But yeah, it's a general, and this is what I was saying before, is that they take a lot of those traditional Christmas tropes and they just put them in there in a way that sort of explains how all of this stuff works.
Right.
And I think it works pretty well. Like no one's over here just like, what? That's a ridiculous way for Santa to become not immortal anymore. It's like, because everybody kind of generally accepts the magic of Santa or whatever when he's in a movie.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And then that's when the main villain guy goes back to the family and he says, all right, who's the Santa Claus? Who'd you hire? And they're like, we don't know who you're talking about. And then he gets the husband. And he said, we're about to find out. And he puts his finger in a nutcracker and bites down on it, or has another guy do it.
Twist it, right?
Yeah, and then twist it. And then he's like, okay, well, let's actually get some testicles in here. And they're about to
use its real purpose.
Yeah.
That part, what's really funny is steam kept going off while I was watching this movie, and so you can see these little like steam things keep popping up in the corner. It's so annoying. That stuff drives me crazy. But yeah, so that part I was like, oh no. I was like, I don't know how far this movie's willing to go. You know what I mean? You're like, I don't know how far they're gonna go. But it doesn't
stop just short.
Yeah, it doesn't end up happening. Because she gives up that she's talking to Santa.
Yeah. The husband or her father says to her, Santa Claus isn't real. We just made that up.
Yeah, and he's like, no, he is real. I've been talking to him on the walkie-talkie, and so that's when you get the realization. I don't want to talk about that in a second. But the other thing that I thought was pretty good too, just to give like some extra context to everything, is that the mom says when asked about the Santa, she's like, no, we never have a Santa because that's tacky. And it's a really funny line, but when you look at the house.
Yes. And how tacky it is.
Yeah. Okay, so I really like this moment, and this is the stuff when we were talking about it last week about the subtlety of where Santa Claus comes from.
Mm-hmm.
And how, like, the origin of this Santa in particular. Now, this could be partially because I've been playing God of War so much over the last couple of months, the two new ones, and they take place in Norse mythology.
Mm-hmm.
But I wish that they really had just kind of showed the tattoos. They play some, like, I think they play some sort of, like, Nordic type music in this scene.
Mm-hmm.
And they kind of had left it at that. Yeah. And one of the other things is I wish the reveal for this had maybe taken place later on. And David Harbour's not in great shape for this role. But a really cool thing that they could have done is if he had gotten in like pretty good shape for this movie. Maybe it's like if you look at you know how because my reference, I want to reference Thor from God of War, which he basically looks like a power lifter who is kind of lost his edge and become a bit of a drunk. So he's still really big. He still looks like he could murder you, but he also has a really big beer gut.
Mm-hmm.
And so it would have been interesting if they had been able to find a way to get David Harbour,
like the dad bod almost,
a little bit, yeah, but like a buff dad bod, not
bod.
like a sloppy dad bod.
Yeah.
But it could have been cool where he gets into a fight with someone, and for whatever reason he takes off like his jacket, and he has all of these like Nordic tattoos all over him, and you're like, oh, like what's going on with, you know what I mean? So it's because I would call that sort of a spectacle moment. But it's also giving you a little more insight into who this guy is. And you're like, oh, he might definitely not be somebody you want to mess with. And you don't have to go into like the extra sort of like flashback lore scenes of him like being a Viking, which is fine. It's not that I really have a problem with that, but I think the subtlety, and again, when I was talking about the pacing and how they spend a lot of time after that second fight doing a lot of this other stuff, and you're like, I kind of think you guys need to get back to the premise of this movie.
I think it's a nice touch. I think it's a nice kind of almost break that kind of just give you a glimpse into who he is, because they don't really show him. They don't show him fighting or killing anyone. It's just him in the midst of a battle with his sledgehammer, and then they come back. I think that was enough. I do think they show it again, though. Yeah. And that was when I was like, okay, well, we already got it in the first bit. I really don't. Yeah, like I really don't think there's anything else that. Okay, we got the idea.
Yeah.
Now you're just repeating. You're being redundant.
Yeah. So you get the tattoos, which the reveal isn't the problem. I just think it would have been really cool if they had found a more sort of cinematic way of doing it than it just being he has to repair his wound, fix up his wound, and so we're going to show you his tattoos to give you a clue. Which again, it's fine. The tattoos being a clue into who he is, especially the arm tattoo. I went, oh, I recognize those patterns. Still cool. And I think the movie, for the most part, does a pretty good job of jumping between the serious moments and the moments of moments. And kind of the comedy and all of that. So this is where I think he spends some time talking to the girl, right?
Yeah, and he bites down on a wooden Christmas ornament while he, fixes his wound.
Yeah. But see, this is what I'm saying is like we've gone. I'm just going to scroll back for a second because I want to see when that last fight was. So that last fight ends at a little about the 35-minute mark, a little past that. 38 minutes.
Okay.
And then they go through all the stuff that we were talking about. I'm now at the 47-minute mark.
Yeah.
Now he's talking to the girl. We're at the 50-minute mark.
And they stay there for a while talking. I enjoyed their interaction. I think it brought that balancing the warmth of what a Christmas movie should be in there. But I definitely can see when you add, I think you could still leave her in there and him talking to her.
Sure.
And even the previous scene, I think it's everything else surrounding it.
Here's that second part you were talking about, where and that's not too long after. I mean, dude, we're almost at the hour mark.
Yeah.
So this is almost gone. Well, okay. It's 20 minutes.
Yeah.
It's about 20 minutes before you get back into it. And that's what I'm saying is it's like, and this movie is what, an hour 45? Is that right?
Yeah, I think so.
I think it's close to what it is. So that's kind of what I'm getting at is it's like, and I had actually forgotten how much stuff was in between that second fight, and then basically you don't get another one until the military group shows up.
Yeah.
That's when it starts picking up again, and that's like 20 minutes afterwards. So they do a lot of exposition and a lot of this stuff that I would have to really like go back and excuse me, goodness, I'd have to go back and watch that section again to tell you for sure like what worked, what didn't,
and
maybe
what didn't work.
This is what they could have cut, because they could have probably kept that moment of him talking with the girl in there, because it doesn't look like, just from scanning through that again, it doesn't look like it's that much time. But that's 20 minutes.
It's everything else coupled with it, along with bringing in the new, criminal team or whatnot.
And they have to explain all of that. And it makes me wonder, if you were to look at that, if there was a way, even if they were going to keep the criminal, I'm just going to call them mercenaries. The mercenary team in there.
The new mercenary team coming to join the party.
Yeah. Even if you wanted to keep that plot point in there, because that gets more guys there, that's more action that's going to happen. I'm fine with that. You could have cut probably 15 minutes out of that.
Yeah, something.
Could have cut that down.
It needed to be cut down.
And that's what I'm getting at. Is like, that's why it was like, man, it really takes him a long time to get back into the into the action and the reason that people are really coming to watch this movie, which is Santa Claus fighting these bad guys.
Yeah, and I really think that they could have not had the extra mercenary group and just continued him taking out all the other, the original mercenary group there one by one.
Yeah, the only
instead of 1v2. Yeah, I think that works. I think adding the other group just kind of wastes more time. Couple that along with all the other that big exposition dump that we just had.
The only reason that I will disagree with you is because I think you get two of the best scenes in the movie. You definitely get one of the best comedy moments in the movie because the mercenaries are there. Mm-hmm. But then you also wouldn't get the whole like woodshed fight if they didn't exist. Like they are there.
That's true.
They are there to eventually be to be in this fight to get slaughtered by Santa Claus.
Could they not have made, instead of having to add another group coming in and the betrayal from, because the other group, the head guy is supposed to be the billionaire mother's her private security force, the extraction team, right? And the guy that leads them ends up betraying her too. I think they could have easily just have started the movie with that. You know what I mean? Like, okay, the main villain comes in and he also comes in with her security force, or they're all in on it rather than having to
show up or whatever.
Show up.
It could have. Yeah, it's possible. I mean, you're talking about some major like script rewrites at that point if you were going to try to.
I was just saying doing it that way. I just think like instead of even having them in, just have his team be larger.
Yeah.
Be like, hey, this is a billionaire's compound. Probably gonna need a lot of people for this.
It's possible, but I mean, it kind of goes against the idea of like having the heist team because you don't want to have like a massive group. And he needed if she has the security force, which is why I know it's why you were saying like maybe they didn't need to be in it. And maybe they didn't. Maybe if they had shrunk the movie down, maybe added a couple extra characters, and just focused on Santa getting some interesting fights with each of them, that could have worked too. But for the most part, it really doesn't.
And then her calling them and not picking up because as he, kept saying, I'm one step ahead of you, and he's already killed them.
Yeah.
And so you get that shot, kind of like in All Quiet on the Western Front, where you just get that shot of all the boys being killed from the gas. You just get a shot of all of her security extraction force being killed.
Yeah, it's possible. I mean, at that point, you might as well just cut it.
Yeah, I agree. I'm just saying.
But they really, if you're going with like the intention of what they were trying to do, it doesn't bother me because you get some really interesting moments of like him taking dudes out. That I think work for the movie. Also, you get we're not quite there yet, but he's following one of the other members of Scrooge's team around, and he gets caught because he bumps the Santa.
Yeah.
And it goes off, and she turns around, and she's like, "What the?" And so this is where he actually gets caught.
Yeah.
And again. We're almost an hour in, and all of this is fine, but it's like
no action.
Yeah, as far as the criticism is concerned, it's like, y'all,
get going.
This pacing, it really slowed down. It's like I don't think you probably didn't need him to get captured. You definitely didn't need to do as much introduction for the mercenary team. They could have just shown up. It's not that big of a deal to show them going to the location. We already know they're coming.
Yep. And then they keep basically all this scene is all three of them not really going back and forth on if they believe that he's Santa or not. I enjoy the line to where she Candy, I think her code name is Candyman. Candy Cane, that's it. And she says, I think he's Santa. Or expresses a belief that he's Santa, and then Scrooge says to her, "I know you're an idiot, but don't be an idiot out loud."
And that's the thing is this whole exchange with them, I was fine with, and again, that's not the criticism. The criticism is there's just a lot of extra stuff in this nearly half an hour of this movie that is borderlines on padding out the movie to get it as long as maybe they needed it to be or thought that it needed to be. When you could have sliced some of this up, got a solid hour and a half, probably wouldn't have been a big deal.
Yeah, because the runtime is an hour and 52 is a total length, but obviously some of that's credit. I don't know how much, but I'll probably put that an hour 45.
It's about hour 45. I think
but I think cutting 15 to 20 minutes out of it would have hit the sweet spot for this movie.
My timeline is at an hour 44, and I cut it like right before the credits.
Nice.
It's a little before the opening. Like I cut out like the Universal logo and stuff like that, and then I cut out the credits or whatever.
Nice.
So yeah, it's roughly that for the runtime of the movie. But yeah, the scene is fine. I like all of it. I think it's good that they wanted to develop the villains a little bit. That they have a little bit of backstory. You understand why he's so angry. And that it's like it works well enough that he at least blames a lot of it on his upbringing. And I don't necessarily think you're supposed to be convinced of that, but it is a nice little thing that you see the kind of character that he is.
And why he
this part's
kind of
good
hates
too.
Christmas.
Yeah. And they think it's snowing.
Yeah. It is just plastic. That the little girl's pouring in the vent.
And so he escapes, and they're just like, "What?" And they're still not quite there, you know.
No,
they still don't. 100%.
They don't want to believe it.
Yeah.
Despite what they just saw, and then this is the boyfriend.
Yeah, you can explain this part.
So the boyfriend attacks one of the guards or one of the mercenaries, guarding them, and then he just breaks out the window and runs and leaves. And the girlfriend is in shock. And what does she say?
Oh, it's right here. I can't
remember what she says, but she says something, and someone would probably know he's left. He's gone. He left you. He's gone.
Kill him, babe!
Hang on. That was probably longer than 5 seconds.
Parkour.
Morgan's gonna save us.
He's gone.
Jean-Claude Van Dipshit just ditched us, sweetie.
It's good. It's definitely one that this, from that moment to the part that we're about to get to, this is what I'm saying.
Picks back up.
Yeah, and this is why if they had worked on the pacing a little bit, this movie probably would have been a much higher recommendation for me. Obviously, it's still a recommendation. I think they do a lot of stuff right. That 30-ish minutes really slows down what ultimately would have been like a top-tier Christmassy in this type of stuff that I like. But this is one of the things, like, I'll still recommend it. It's something I will definitely watch again. It might even be something I watch like in the Christmas time, like Christmas seasons is one of those movies I personally like to watch. Despite it having that, that rough section right there.
Yeah. Right.
Oh, whoops. Let me mute this again. So yeah, he goes, the mercenaries show up and Morgan Steele goes outside and he thinks that these guys are here to save them. And again, I think that kind of showing this is the moment where you realize that it's almost like, oh, what's going to happen right here.
Yeah.
But it works pretty well as the moment you realize, like, oh, these guys aren't here to save the people in the house.
No, they're in on it.
Yep. And they gun him down. Yeah, so it's like they shoot at him and then you get Santa's perspective. It's pretty good.
And then they see Santa, and then they start shooting at Santa.
Yeah, they see him. Hang on. They see him up on the roof, right? What is he?
He pulls up the list, and he's like, it looks like they go from being nice to naughty.
Oh, yeah, that's right. He sees him up on the roof. That's right. And then we're back to the vault. So, and again, this is the part of the movie. I mean, we're in the last 45 minutes or so, last 40 minutes of the movie. And this is where the action really starts like picking up.
Which is really just him going around killing the entire team in the outhouse, garage or shed or whatever it is.
Yeah, which is a really we'll jump to that. I can't remember if there's anything in. Oh no, he's headed there like right now.
Yeah.
So she kind of helps him get his confidence back, and then this is a pretty great shot with the light coming in on the sledgehammer.
Yeah, because he talks about how he misses Mrs. Claus.
Where is it? Oh yeah, which is another thing that listen, all of the little touches are great.
Yep.
Yeah,
you keep going.
Is it here? It is. Yeah. You
Yeah.
get the light on the hammer, and so
Which is perfect. This is how Michael is that his name? Michael Spochnik. This is Spochnik. This is how you do lighting at night.
Oh,
right? So you can actually see.
Yeah, the Game of Thrones guy.
Spochnik, whatever his name is. Good night. The color grading, man.
So yeah, now this is such like a fan, like a, what would you call this? Like a crowd pleaser kind of moment.
Yes.
Which I was totally cool with. That it's basically him just taking out all these mercenaries,
Putting
and
his
swinging
hair
this-
in a man bun and going to town.
putting it back to keep it out of his eyes. And he goes through and he takes him
makes
out.
sense too.
Mm-hmm. Honestly, I don't think I would have cut. Again, this is just a pacing thing. I think I would have let that whole scene play out. I wouldn't have cut into them with the realization. Like it's not very
betrayed.
long. It's not a big deal, but you could have done that before you started that scene up, and then you just let this whole scene play out. I think that was
Candy
that's what I
cane,
would have
dude.
done.
I
Yep.
love the
Candy
nice
cane was
touch of the
good.
candy cane. He sharpens it by sucking on it, and so it becomes a knife, and
And he
it's a
stabs
pretty
that dude. That's gnarly.
large candy cane, and he stabs the guy through the
It's
freaking mouth.
His like cheeks. Yeah.
Yeah.
Guy gets put through like the snow. Oh yeah, he uses the ice skates.
Going through all the winter and
The
Christmas
winter
season
type stuff. Yeah. Oh, he cuts the guy's head off with the ice skates.
Is that a snowboard he uses?
Uh,
No, I think it's just a sledgehammer.
they set up the snowblower.
Yep. And the guy gets tied and goes through it.
Two of them.
Two of them. Oh yeah, that's right.
One. It's at least two. I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure it was two. Oh, this guy.
And this guy's like, "Oh crap!"
He's like, he throws the hammer at him. Oh, the grenade is so good too. This is so okay. Again, it's this like subtle kind of comedy stuff where he puts the grenade in the guy's clothing and he runs away, right? And he stops right here and he goes, "Oh, I gotta see this." And he turns around to watch the guy blow up.
This show's so funny. And then this is just all about them finding out where's the money because it's not in the vault, and he says, "I took it because I, was going to steal it from mom. That way I don't have to be underneath, anyone's thumb again."
Yeah.
And then they're, Candy Cane and the other guy is going to find a little girl. And this is kind of, you get the Home Alone sequence to where she set these traps and they're like, this is stupid. This isn't going to work. And then it ends up working.
Yeah, and she essentially murders one of them.
Yeah.
This 10-year-old, 8-year-old girl.
Kills one of them.
This guy, yeah, he gets taken out, and then Santa finishes her off. Oh, and dude, this when she falls on the sticky stuff and it pulls like that chunk out of the back of her head, that was pretty gross. Oh,
Yeah.
there we go. Sorry, YouTube, don't demonetize us.
That was a bit painful. And I love how she just has this slingshot and it's just a ball, and then it's a ringing dumbbell.
Yeah. Dude, so good.
Dude,
I appreciate that.
Cracking me up.
Yeah.
I was laughing throughout this movie.
So after they have the reveal, this is kind of the other part that they haven't. I guess they haven't quite gotten there. This was fine. I think them do. Sorry, I gotta explain this. So,
Yeah.
A few of the family members. This is the part you were talking about too, where they're all. He's basically gonna like shoot one of them, and then they're like, "Oh no, shoot her, shoot!" And so you get it's like that sort of like survival / selfish nature of each of the characters. They're like, nah, like I don't care about you, like that whole deal. I think that works pretty well. And then they ultimately
end up turning on him.
Yeah, they ultimately team up and take the dude down. Again, kind of surprised that they just went with the all three of them are going to make it out of this scenario alive.
Yeah.
The family comes off pretty clean as far as like survival in this, which is kind of like, all right, yeah. And then, you know, he gets taken out or whatever. Again, totally fine with this moment. And then, you know, Santa gets introduced to the family. And this is kind of the stuff that I'm like, I don't know why you needed like her to fight these guys.
Of the shootout.
Yeah, it's a little weird, and like she didn't have enough. It's one of those moments where you're like, I think their reasoning is like, oh, she went hunting with her dad, like that.
So she's decent enough with a gun.
Decent
now, obviously,
shot.
she's, you know, just went hunting with her dad, but so you clearly see in that scene she's not that great with, you know, firearm.
Right.
But she does take out one or two people,
and then
which does make sense. But I just don't think you need the scene with how bloated it is.
The biggest it's not just that, but it's like she went hunting a couple times, and they kind of show that she's not a great shot, and she's fighting like 10 mercenaries who
trained.
Who have already been shown to not care about taking those people out.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of like, I don't know about this. Like one. You got to think about it where it's like, oh, the family is escaping. It's like, well, their lives don't matter at this point because they know where the money is.
Yeah, I was thinking about them actually being, you know, skilled and trained at shooting.
Yeah.
And now again, she does. I guess the counter argument to that is not. She doesn't take out the entire team. I think she only takes out one guy.
Here's the thing, though. There's a good number of them in here.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6,
or more,
and maybe a couple more that I haven't quite seen. There's a good number of them, right? One of her,
right.
They know exactly where she is. They're trained. She probably would have been dead.
Yeah.
And it's like, I know, again, it's like, I know it's kind of schlocky. I know the you know, that they're trying to get that, but it's a little like it's a little too contrived for where we are in the movie, and you're trying to convince me that these mercenaries are the people that would have been protecting the mother.
Yeah. And
that they're too incompetent to be able to deal with the situation. They had a machine gun. Yeah. Like an LMG that they were using earlier. It's like, we got the money, we don't need them. Like it's a bit of an issue. I think
it would have been cool to show, again, instead of having this new, you know, her bodyguard show up and betray her, you know, he has the mercenaries have a bit larger of a team, and, you know, Santa Claus is going one by one and knocking them out, but like along the way it becomes too overwhelming, so he has to kind of start learning how to use, you know, modern technology, you know, firearms.
That would have been interesting.
And he's going through all the mistakes of using a firearm, you know, or, you know, and other, you know, modern day, you know, military weapons.
Yeah. But for the most part, I mean, again, this goes on too long, and like we get this whole they have this scenario and
their whole moment.
Now they're getting into a fight with this guy. I was like, they really didn't need to do a lot of this because this is what I was talking about.
They
end
up killing them.
Yeah. They're showing this fight in the middle of the one with Santa, and it's like, I think I just would have preferred if you had
just stayed on Santa.
Yay, they're together again. Santa has saved them. Let's move on to him finishing off the movie.
Yeah.
Because look at this, they go back and forth with these two for a while, and it's fine. Like,
and it's like, oh, they're back together, and that's their kind of redemption point, right? To where, hey, she's gonna get her Christmas wish, right? Her family's gonna get back together. But I think you could have had that without that scene, with everything else that had gone on.
Yeah. And that was totally fine. They could have done that. They could have saved that part for the end of the movie. Like, they're saved, and then after the whole event goes down, they have this moment where they're like, "Hey, let's try this again. Maybe we can actually make it work this time." I'm sorry, you know, that whole, you know, spiel.
which is a common thing that happens when it's when you experience a near-death experience, right? A life-threatening situation, to where you reevaluate things, and you either go hot or cold, one way or the other. You're not really lukewarm anymore. You make more decisions.
Yeah. And so they get a chase, and they end up, John Leguizamo and Santa end up in this one-on-one fight with each other, which I really enjoyed. I think this is definitely one of the best parts of the movie. He comes to the realization that Santa is real, and instead of sort of being like, oh man, like there's more to it, he's already at the point where he's like, it's too far gone. You know, he's just like, he doesn't even care. And in fact, he now is blaming Santa for all of his, like who he has become, you know?
Yep.
Which I think works with his character pretty well. And the fight's pretty good. And how, the ending, again, we got to point it out when it happens, it's spectacle done correctly.
Right. To where it makes sense within the story.
Yeah. So they get into this big fight, and Santa almost loses this. And what's really interesting to me about a lot of this, and this is what I think this is pretty subtle, and I'm kind of guessing that this is a specific plot point.
Right.
The villains becoming to realize that Santa is real is ultimately their downfall. So that moment when he gets captured earlier on when they tie him up with the Christmas lights, he gets away because he loses his magic, right? So it's like his magic is gone earlier on. He's kind of reached that lowest point. And as he's going through this scenario and people are beginning to believe in him again because they're actually able to see all of the stuff that's happening, he's getting those powers back. And so it's like,
so it starts out as a weakness to him, but slowly becomes a strength as the movie progresses.
And it's so, and the fact that they're like, because you get those, I don't think it's a coincidence that you get those moments where it's like, I think this might actually be Santa. You know, they're saying those things, and then him getting his magic back. I think the implication is supposed to be that because
they're believing a little bit.
Yeah, that it's enough for him to be able to use his magic.
And then you get the nice callback to him saving himself by touching his nose.
Yep. And so he does.
And I like how they don't really explain the magic to the Christmas magic.
Yeah,
it's
like,
just, I don't really get it.
We don't know who gave him this power. We don't know where it came from. We just know that he had a life before he became Santa.
Yeah.
A very, like, I think tragic life, you could probably say.
Yes.
Which is pretty cool. And at some point he met Mrs. Claus, whatever that looked like. And so, yeah, this is the moment where he uses the nose and he sends them both up the chimney, and boom!
Boom! Explosion.
Big explosion, and he throws the corpse down. I love how it's like all over him, and he starts like, he's like, oh, this is gross.
Yeah. And then and then you think it's done, and then he gets shot.
Yep.
And then, the billionaire lady ends up killing the bodyguard that ended up betraying her. And then, it's shown that Santa Claus is dying and he dies, but then because they believe, their belief brings him back, correct?
Pretty much, yeah. He's able to get enough magic back, I would say, in order to heal himself and come back to life. And he like scares him too, I think. Oh, and they try to burn the money. Remember, it's like, oh, we have to keep him warm, and so he's like burning the money from the that like 300 million. Mm-hmm. And the sister is like, no, why are you doing that? It's pretty good. So yeah, he dies for a couple minutes, and then he comes back to life, thanks them, and he gets his reindeer back. And they bring his extra bag, and I guess it's because he has to finish this whole scenario has happened, and he still has to go finish delivering the presents,
delivering gifts, and it's
and he
gets a note from Miss Claus saying, "I figured you needed your bag or something.
Thought you might need this."
Yeah. Miss S.
There's his hammer.
C.
His hammer looks a little small here. Maybe I'm just being ridiculous about it, but I don't know.
I don't know. I think it looks fine.
Maybe it's just that angle. Oh yeah, no, it's fine. It's weird. It just maybe it's because David Harbour is actually a big dude.
Guy.
Yeah. So yeah, pretty good. I mean, that's pretty much the movie. I don't know if there's really, he flies off to finish delivering the presents.
Yeah.
And that's Violent Night. Do you have anything else you want to add? Do you have anything else you want to say about the movie?
Great job by the directors by, just kind of executing a simple plot and staying in their lane, but kind of expanding the lane, so to say, and adding, keeping the warmth of the Christmas spirit while maintaining blending the modern day cynicism of Christmas within it.
You want to know something interesting about the writers of this movie?
What's that?
They also wrote
Rings of Power?
both of the Sonic the Hedgehog movies that have released over the last couple of years.
Oh, that is interesting.
And the guy that directed this, the schlock thing is kind of is like normal for him. Let's see, what am I under? I think that's writer, director. He did Dead Snow, which was it was a zombie movie that came out. It's a German zombie movie that came out 2009. Pretty schlocky. It's, people out in the snow and Nazi zombies come out of the ground and they have to survive.
Oh, yeah.
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 I haven't seen it in years. I remember it being
what's it
fun.
called again?
It's called Dead Snow.
Yes. I
And
know what you're talking about.
There's also a sequel that he did in 2014 called Dead Snow 2 Red versus Dead, whatever that means. I haven't seen that one. He also directed Hansel and Gretel Witch Hunters with Jeremy Renner.
Oh, yeah.
Which that is, I don't remember liking that all that
It's
much.
a movie.
It's very schlocky because
Yeah.
that was during a time period where they were bringing back all of those fairy tale type stories and trying to make them gritty. Because that's when they did that Snow White movie that was supposed to be a little more it was what am I thinking of? Twilight-ish. And I'm probably saying that because what's her face from Twilight was in it. She played Snow White. It's got Charlize Theron in it. And it's they weren't very good, but that was what that's what was going on at the time. And then so they had Hansel and Gretel, and I'm sure there were some other ones that had come out around that time period where they were doing the same thing, where it's like, oh, we're doing these edgy versions of fairy tales, and it's like, all right, I mean that's a thing. It's like it could be cool, and most of it turned out to be middling to bad.
Yeah. No, I know what you mean. I know that. Man, I wanted to see instead of doing a new Santa Claus movie, didn't they do a TV series?
Yeah, it sucks.
And I heard that it sucked.
Yeah, it's really
which
bad.
is sad. Oh man, I had thought about watching it, but then I heard everyone saying that it sucked, and I was like, I'm not gonna do that.
It's just not. Yeah.
Not worth it.
No. It feels like a lot of modern Disney writing. I'll just say that.
Yeah, say that.
Yeah.
I'm not surprised.
They treated Tim Allen better in that show, writing wise, than I thought they were going to, though.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I was surprised. I figured he was just gonna be dogged on.
Yeah, the butt of every joke or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. They do a couple things in it where it's just it's cringy, dude. Not that I mean I think the Santa Claus movies after the first one get pretty cringy. Like I don't think there's a lot of merit in the two sequels.
Yeah.
Either, but yeah, that is the bottom of the barrel. I mean, that's Disney at this point, though. I mean, everything that they put out,
is the real bottom of the barrel.
Yeah. Well, I think I'm gonna actually have to finish Andor. Everybody is talking about this show, and a lot of people like it. And what's funny is a lot of people like it because it's Star Wars, but also not Star Wars. They removed a lot of the stuff that most people identify with Star Wars, and they just told a story in that universe. And a lot of people are like, this is the best content they've done in a while. And it's like, there's no lightsabers.
Hey, look, you do something original.
Yeah, but it'll.
Good.
I guess it's getting a sequel. And even though the viewership for it was terrible.
Yeah, it's probably just too late.
And then
it probably should have been done earlier, kind of like with Black Widow.
Oh,
that's not the problem with Black Widow, but
if they had started with Andor, it probably, you're right. I think the viewership, if we were talking about the exact same show, I think the viewership would have been much better. People would have been willing to stick around for the whole thing. But because you had Boba Fett, Obi-Wan, Mandalorian, especially season 2, but everyone's really started to realize how not great that entire show is. Because it's just been so much sludge, and it's really gotten worse and worse. Most people just weren't willing to give Andor a shot when it finally came out, because it's just like,
because it's been one crap show after the other.
Yeah, and it's 12 episodes, which is longer than any of the other shows, and I think they're all roughly 30, 35 minutes. They just have like 15 minutes of credits for some reason and it seems really cheap. A lot of people think that they're doing that to boost the watch hours on shows. So it says it's 45 minutes. It's not really. And then a lot of people, after they're finished watching an episode, won't just turn it off immediately. And so the credits are all rolling, and that counts for them adding those minutes to their minutes watched when they release their numbers. And so it's a little, if that's what's really going on, it's kind of slimy. But yeah, I mean, I'm going to have to finish it at some point. I think I'm finally at a good spot. And I don't know if you heard, but that show, 1899, got canceled.
I did hear that.
Yeah.
Like, that show must have been...
No.
That must have been
bad. Everyone that watched it loved it. But Netflix canceled it anyway.
Makes sense.
All I have seen is people saying, this show was great, and they didn't give it a chance. And
that makes sense.
Yeah. It made that legitimately...
Because with the streaming, specifically with Netflix, what I've seen, it has to be an instant hit. You can't with Netflix. They don't want anything that builds an audience.
Do you think
over time?
Do you think that they'll renew Blood Origin?
Ooh,
I don't actually know how well Blood Origin
won't be
did.
watching it. I don't know that. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised, but yeah, they're out of all the streaming services, man.
They're kind of.
They have to be the worst one.
They're at the bottom.
The bottom, right?
I don't know,
because I don't like Amazon. Is terrible with fantasy, but there are other shows on Amazon that are good.
Yeah, I don't know.
So
you should write this down. You should put a poll out tomorrow and ask everybody what they think the best streaming service is, and put like the major ones, and then add a category for other. And if people want to have stuff in the comments, you have like Netflix, Hulu, Disney, Amazon, and then do other, and then put in like quotations. Let us know in the comments if you think it's a different one.
Okay. I'm
curious what people would say, because I wouldn't be surprised if Disney and Netflix are the ones battling for last place. That would be my
pretty
guess.
Atrocious. I just can't think of not that I can think of anything on Disney either. I just can't think of anything on Netflix movie wise that's original to them, or show wise that's original to them that's good.
I mean, not that was made
Stranger Things, outside of Stranger Things.
Well, I was gonna say, Stranger Things is wait, are you talking about Netflix or Disney?
Netflix.
Oh,
I don't think Wednesday's good.
Dark, which was the 1899 guys. That show's really good, but it's not for everybody. It's pretty niche. It's like really, it's very sci-fi heavy, heavy sci-fi, and it's in German, so that's like another barrier for a lot of people.
Yeah, I'd be curious to see what people have to say.
I mean, All Quiet on the Western Front count? Because that came out.
Okay.
On occasion, but that's the thing, is like they're not going to make a sequel to that.
No.
I doubt. Stranger Things is done after another season, and that's been hit or miss. Like, yeah, it's been successful for them, but season 1 and season 4 are good, and 2 and 3 are not.
Yeah. I just think Netflix's business model is showing its cracks.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's so much the business model as much as it is just horrific writing and choosing the wrong people to lead projects consistently.
Yeah, well, and then they had the whole Cuties controversy. I mean, for obvious reasons, that was a big deal for a lot of people, and they just kind of ignored it. It's like that might. I mean, as far as like trying to avoid conflict, or like to avoid like losing the most amount of subscribers from that. That, man, I remember when that was like a big thing, and there were a lot of people who, like, there were people on YouTube that were like defending it.
Yeah.
And it was just like, y'all, like, what are you doing? Not anybody that I don't think I was following anybody that did, but through other creators at the time, it was like, oof. And I think that movie came out in like 2020, so it was just like, I think it if everybody wasn't like at home most of the time, you know, like locked in their homes, I don't think that there would have been much of a controversy with that. Because I don't think anyone would have realized that it was much of a thing. It might have made some like rounds on the internet, but ooh, yeah.
I know what you mean.
You know, I know art is subjective, but you know, I don't know what they were trying to get across with that one. There's, you know, yeah. Anyway,
that was pretty bad.
And I'm sure there were some other controversies that I'm forgetting at this point. I think the Obamas were supposed to have some sort of like big deal with Netflix too. They paid them like an insane, like I want to say it was like $800 million or something for some sort of rights for them to do a bunch of stuff on Netflix, and I don't think any of that ever happened.
No. Same thing, I think, with Harry and Meghan.
Well, they have a show, but I don't remember what the controversy was with that, but it was not good either. People are watching that though. There was some sort of like drama maybe with the show. I can't remember. It's so hard to keep up with all of these things. Cool. Well, did you have anything else you wanted to add before we close out?
Nope. That is it.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for listening, watching, wherever you happen to be consuming this. Thank you guys for tuning in. And we will be back next week with another episode. We're going to be talking about our best and worst of 2022. I think we're going to do 3 apiece. I feel like that's a good, solid number. And you, like, it'll be kind of whatever. Like, I think I'm going to go 1 show, 1 movie, 1 game in both of those categories, just to have some differences in what we do. And then we may or may not have some guests. I gotta reach out to
Okay, so you're saying we list 3 movies, 3
No.
shows.
You get 3 good and 3 bad, and it can be whatever media you want it to be.
Okay.
I'm just saying what I will probably
I haven't
do.
played any video games.
Well, that's what I'm saying is why it's like mine will go in that, because it's nice and neat. I can have a variety of stuff, and there'll be like less overlap, because it could be really easy for it to be like, well, we picked
I'll probably
the
do my
exact same
favorite
stuff.
podcast
Oh, okay.
of this past year.
All right.
Maybe that's what I'll do. Since you're doing video game, I'll do 1 movie, 1 TV show, and then 1 podcast.
Yeah, because we don't read, so.
Yeah. Oh, no, I'll do 1 book.
All right. Well, until next time, y'all take it easy.
Take it easy.
I have so many apps open, I forget. That was only an hour and 40 minutes. We streamed a little bit longer, but I didn't start recording until a little bit later, so technically it was only an hour and 40-ish minutes.
Nice.
Tyler, welcome to the end.
Yeah, Tyler. Hey and bye, because I'm signing off.
Yeah, I gotta actually probably work tomorrow. It's like a 50-50 chance right now, but it looks like the rain's not coming in until tomorrow night.
Oh.
So.
Well, hi. Oh yeah, I see that. Y'all got that bad weather coming your way.
Ooh, let's see.
Doesn't look
It's
like
up to it's up to a 60% chance, but it says it's not starting till 5 o'clock. So I should be able to at least still get 8 hours in tomorrow.
Nice.
I'm going to let's see. So in 2 weeks, 2 weekends from now, so not this coming weekend, but the one after, I'm going to a motocross show with my boss, because he competes, and I'm going to do a bunch of his media for him. So like pictures, video, a bunch of that stuff. So, I think that Monday is God of War, so that's going to be a really long. That's going to be a really long weekend.
Interesting.
But that's why I'm happy. Like, we have stuff set up already because now I can go, and I don't have to worry about doing anything that weekend while I'm gone. Except I'll probably like look into some stuff for God of War, and then be ready to talk about that on Monday, and then we'll go from there.
All right, dude. Well, that works for me. So next
Tyler
week
said he's
we're
been here the
doing
whole time.
next week
He's
we'll
playing
do
Destiny. I saw
our top 3 and top worst, and then we'll do the following week God of War, and then after that we got The Last of Us.
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna hit the hay.
All righty.
All right, see ya.
Tyler, you were definitely. I saw your little thing come up that said Tyler's playing Destiny. I'm gonna pull up. I'm gonna pull up. Uh-oh, hang on, I'm gonna pull it up right now. Wait, where's my friends list, dude? I like don't know how Steam works half the time. See, it says it's you. It says you're playing Crucible. Oh, you weren't here the entire time. Okay. Yeah, because you were playing Destiny with 5 other people. Tyler, you got to play Soma. I need to talk to someone about it, and Joseph won't play spooky games. I don't even know if you're still here. I'm about to end the stream. I'm losing my voice. I was with my wife, actually, and yes, I want to play Spooky. Soma's great, dude. It's on Game Pass if you have that for Xbox. And I bet it's pretty cheap on Steam right now, too. I think you'll really like it. It's very existential in a lot of the questions that it asks. I feel like it's kind of right up your alley. All right. Well, I'm glad you showed up. And I will talk to you soon. So I'm going to end the stream now. Goodbye, everyone.